All right, tell me what it's like to enter the lion's den of Davos in the World Economic Forum.
There's many ways I could answer this question. I mean, I think on one side, if you get really caught up in all of the politics of what's happening there, it's really heavy. You know, there's a lot of different groups like Young Global Leaders and different groups that are very oriented in, you know, having power. But at the same time, I feel like there are like so many young people there, so many youth that are hopeful, that are not disillusioned by the possibility of making change. And so it was such a gift to be with youth there, to be with people. I feel like I attracted like so many cool people there. And it was a really interesting time because it was the first time, at the same time we were there, there was this little psychedelic gathering. So I got to hang out with Amanda Fielding, and that's where I first met Alex and Allison Gray, and we became really good friends. And Alex sure knows how to tear it up on the dance floor. I feel like we created this vortex and that we were all meant to be there, and we were there to like bring a certain like consciousness. And I feel like when you're in these conversations, like we were at many different events, you know, where we spoke, Joseph and my husband, Joseph, and it felt like, you know, the synchronicity and the blessing of being there was so real. Like I never want to walk into a room that I'm not invited, but it felt like there was definitely a divine assignment that at that time we were meant to be there. And one thing a lot of people don't know about World Economic Forum is there's a lot of groups of people that understand the dynamics that are at play there. And some of those people put on these beautiful healing events with like healing zones, with biohacking, with massage, with opportunities to, you know, connect to people who are looking at doing things in a different way in terms of environmental. And it's more like not necessarily the Davos main event, you know, with like all of the, you know, sinister leaders that, you know, so
you will own nothing and be happy and eat the bugs
and eat all of the bugs. But there's so many like other places within there where you can bring light. And I know so many great people that go every year for that reason.
That's so interesting. Yeah. I think many of us, myself included at times, we have a very binary worldview, right? Where you just, you know, you hear murmurs or you see evidence of nefarious actors that are part of an organization or a belief system or whatever it is. And so we just go, okay, I have to separate everything into good and evil, light and dark. And I'm going to blanket that entire organization or group of people as evil, when I sense that it's much more nuanced, especially like in the realm of any kind of organization, whether it's intelligence agencies and so on. It's like the information is compartmentalized, right? There's like a pyramidal structure.
100%.
Just like not every politician is evil and not every Western doctor is out to kill you with pharmaceuticals, right? It's like, you know, there's a systemic sort of issue. And within that, there's a lot of good people that probably have no clue of some of the, you know, the agendas kind of behind the curtain that are at play. And they're authentically in there trying to make a positive contribution.
Yeah, and I think the people that are doing things that maybe might seem nefarious in some way have been misinformed on what might be doing good. And I think the gift of world bridging is the idea of showing people a new way. You know, being able to have those opportunities to have that drop in with that one person where they think about something differently. I think that's like truly the gift, is when you can really connect with somebody and know that, you know, there was something that changed. And I think on a collective level, you should come to Davos.
Oh my God.
We should do a podcast at Davos, because There is something too, like in Maharishi, who created transcendental meditation, the Maharishi effect. When you get a certain number of people that are operating in heart-centered consciousness in a room, it changes the vibe. And when I was at the Maha Ball during the inauguration, which there were bomb threats during inauguration, they shut down pretty much like a huge chunk of, like, it was freezing cold. Wow. We're all dressed up in ball gowns and we're having to like walk a mile into where the actual Maha Ball is. Luckily, there was these guys, you had to pay them $200 with these little bicycle carriages that were able to go in. And so we were able to snag a bike and get in. But when we got there to the Maha Ball, the frequency of all these people in the healthcare movement that were like, just like heart-centered people who have been working hard, who have been standing up for the environment, for healthcare, for children, all of these things, all in the room. The amount of energy that was in that room was so incredible. And I know because I've been to DC before, and DC has a very heavy energy. It made a shift.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Well, I think share with you the intention to serve, and to make my minute contribution to the collective. But I also know that the Trojan horse archetype exists for a reason, you know, and sometimes you can't just, it's like the dark side uses the Trojan horse to, ease into authoritarianism, right? But consciousness also has its own Trojan horse, which is, infiltrating your way into, a group of people, organization, government, or otherwise. If your intentionality is pure, then you can't just come in waving, your flag that makes what you're doing so obvious. So I like the idea of the kind of top-down influence, right? And I know you do a lot of incredible facilitation. And I always fantasize about, just imagine if the experiences that I've had with psychedelics, for example, that have been so transformative and healing, but also have refined my moral character and ethics so much more than I ever did kind of chipping away at it on my own. 100%. Just walking out of a ceremony and being like, oh shit, I'm out of integrity. Boom, fix it, right?
Yeah.
Just going in the nooks and crannies of your psyche and finding character defects you thought you were over or didn't know existed and so on. So I imagine a world where like every head of every multinational corporation, every, government official, anyone that has influence, power, extreme wealth, imagine them having these experiences where they remember who they are.
Yes.
Right? And not that everyone is transformed by psychedelics, because I met a lot of people who are still totally psychotic and out of integrity despite journeying every weekend. But, I think for most of us, like, we can really change how we operate in the world.
100%.
By just learning to love ourselves again and all those things that can happen. So I love the idea of kind of getting in there and getting to the levers that actually move culture.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I feel like a lot of these powerful leaders in government, the billionaires, the people that are really influencing the world have deep trauma. A lot of them sexual trauma. And the this because we were talking earlier about, your own healing path and healing your own trauma around, different things that have happened. And what I see with sexual trauma is it's this deep need to find safety and be in control in every area possible.
That's how it's played out for me. Even today, a friend of mine a few years ago was like, yeah, this biohacking stuff you do? I was like, yeah, I care about my health. He's like, no, it's all about control, because when you were abused, you had no control over that situation. And I was like, God damn it. I knew he's right. It just landed, not that I stopped being healthy or anything, but it gave me a little bit of a perspective on that. Like, that's interesting.
I love biohacking. It's such a big part of my formula, but I see it as a bridge. I think we have to be really careful with biohacking, because on one side of the coin, we have such deep trauma. And I feel like it's the modern day shamanism in the sense that if you go into initiatic traditions, it's all about purification. Purification baths, temezcal or sweat lodge, all of these things that are purifying. And we're doing that, but we're doing it in a more like technologically advanced way. And if we're using that intention as we're doing it to purify ourselves of the parasites, the candida, the mold, the heavy metals, and that's essentially what is blocking consciousness. And so we have more access to consciousness. But then I think there's the other side of biohacking, which even goes into like almost a transhumanism narrative, which is the like, I'm afraid to die, therefore I'm trying to suck energy from every single thing around me, like stem cells and, you know, the vampire facial, they even call it the vampire, you know, all of these things. And so I think there is also a level of discernment to what types of treatments, who is administering those treatments, what kind of path they're on. And then also like, using it as a tool and a bridge to get to the point where water is your only medicine and nature is your only medicine and food is your only medicine.
I love that perspective because I've observed in myself and many other people the erroneous belief or perspective that it's like when you set any goal, right? Or there's any desire you have or something you want to manifest. I think many of us don't realize that it's not the thing that we're trying to attain. It's the feeling that we believe we're going to have when we attain that thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's like with all the physical health stuff, I think many of us at times believe it's going to lead to a sense of equanimity, inner peace, serenity, joy, fulfillment, meaning, purpose.
Yeah.
And it won't. I've tried it. It doesn't work. To me, it's like where I've evolved into currently is I want to feel as physically vital as possible in my body.
Yeah.
I could really care less like how long I'm here in my body.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I need to have the energy to fulfill my dharmic path and the mission, right? Which is like learning how to love, remembering who I am, learning how to love the things that are seemingly unlovable within myself and humanity at large, right? So it's like, if you're sick and toxic and you don't sleep and you have no energy and you have any kind of, chronic disease, it's very difficult to have the emotional and mental and physical fortitude to be your best self.
Yeah.
Right. So it's more like, I got to take care of the vehicle because I need the vehicle to do the thing I'm here to do.
Exactly.
Versus thinking that I can perfect the vehicle so that I'm here forever and that's going to lead to the fulfillment that I'm finding through my spiritual practice.
Yeah.
Like a lot of us get it backwards is what I'm saying, and I think we kind of have to go through it and then we arrive at a place of like perfect health and we go, oh shit, I'm still neurotic or I still have, I haven't done my real deep shadow work. I'm still running away from my problems and caught in escapism. That's the thing I found too, is like a lot of the biohacking stuff, because I've been very obsessive about it at times, a lot of the time. It's its own kind of tool of avoidance.
Yeah.
It's like being preoccupied with the body is like a really good distraction from actually just being in silence and facing yourself and whatever comes up. It's like a double-edged sword with everything,
Yeah. And I feel like we go through cycles. Like I think, in the psychedelic world and just even in the inner healing work, it can be a very mental process, especially if you really have been stuck in your head and you haven't really been able to anchor that like heart connection, which a lot of people who are new on the journey are in that place. But I have found, and I think one of the biggest anchors of all of the work is somatic practice. And it's not just like going for a run or doing yoga or Pilates or going to the gym, but it's like really the, like the Bessel van der Kolk, or I might be mispronouncing his last name, body keeps score. It's the idea that our body is our karma. And, I've been doing Rolfing for probably about 20 years now, like deep structural body work.
Having it done.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's hardcore. Rolfing is no joke.
It's painful.
Yeah.
But I have moved so much trauma, and I know ancestral karma that's like living in my body through that. And I really feel like the somatic archaeology is just as important as the inner landscape archaeology. It's like as above, so below.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. You reminded me of an experience I had. I did a lot of psychedelics back in the 80s when I was a teenager, 80s and 90s actually, without any intentionality, right? Just as an effort to try to escape from the experience of being me, which is, I always remind people, that's a horrible strategy for trying to escape from yourself. But anyway, so I had a lot of those experiences, but then I, got sober and was sober for, I think, I always say 22, but I did the math the other day. I think it was 20. When I was 20 years sober, I went and sat with ayahuasca, and the whole world opened up to me. That's been beautiful and incredibly transformative. But my first intentional journey with mushrooms and MDMA was a few years back. I think that was like after my first few ayahuasca, and I felt safe to kind of explore that realm. But to your point of the somatics, I've always had like really crazy tight hips. Like I just have a lot of issues with my hips, and that's caused lower back problems and stuff. Long story short, during the journey, I just started moving around. I think the MDMA, just is really good in that kind of
100%.
That formula to just be really in your body and feel very safe in the depth of some of the crunchiness where mushrooms can take you. So I was in there and I was like, wow, feeling pretty groovy. And I started moving around a little bit, and I started just kind of like having more fluidity in my hips. And I was like, wow, that's weird. Like my range of motion started to open up. And then this energy started moving through my body, and I started just shaking and like gyrating, especially in my hips. It was just, I couldn't even like stop it if I wanted to. And it was going on for quite a while. And I was like, what is this? And then it led me to my sexual trauma. I was like, oh shit. My body went, we're closing this area forever. We don't want that to happen again. Thank you, body. Good job. But we're safe now. I'm a grown-ass man. I have boundaries. No one's going to hurt us in that way. But it was such a potent realization of what you speak to. It's like the body keeps the score. You're damn right. For 50 years, it keeps the score.
Yeah.
It's such a interesting and profound awareness.
Yeah. And what's interesting, I see this a lot with people in the medicine where they just spontaneously start doing like kriyas, like yogic kriyas, or moving their body, or even, I'm friends with Stan and Brigitte Groff. And they gave me this like handbook of like all of, it's like their secret. It's not secret. You go through an advanced level training, but it shows all the things that happen when people are under holotropic breath work, which are exactly the same as 5-MeO DMT, which I've witnessed a couple thousand times in my lifetime as, a facilitator. And, when you get the like lobster, I don't know if you've ever had that happen where you get the lobster claws. It's like a form of Kundalini blockage.
Totally.
And it's
I call it the T-Rex.
The lobster claws. I like the T-Rex. That's a good analogy. But really, like the places that we hold trauma in our body are sometimes the most unassuming places. Like, for example, with you, with sexual trauma, a lot of people hold in the pelvic floor. And there's such an intricate system, and it affects the bladder, it affects the adrenals. You also have the psoas, which is the muscle of the soul. And so the minute that you're able to like have that release, you're actually really able to be present. And some people say that they haven't experienced presence until they actually had that full release of the pelvic floor. For me, I had a lot of anger, and I didn't know where I was storing it in my body. And I found out it was in my jaw.
And in the rolfing work, which is usually a series of sessions where you work on one part.
I only made it through a couple of the first series, and I was like, I think I'm good.
Yeah, it's pretty intense.
That's inspiring, though, that you've done like a series of that, of the cycle, I guess you could call it. I don't know if I've ever met anyone.
Over.
That's cool.
I do 2 hours of rolfing every week still now to this day.
Wow.
During COVID, like for like the last 5 years, I was like religious on doing the work. And the jaw work, what happens is the rolfer will put gloves on and go into the mouth, into different nooks and crannies in the mouth. Literally, I would have these emotions of like rage or feeling like I'm dying or not being able to breathe. And it's interesting how the jaw, the throat are also interconnected to the pelvic floor. And so I would say like, and you look in the mirror afterwards and you look like a different person. It's incredible. So, there's a lot of rabbit holes we could be going down, but I want to share some of the codes for people to really get the most out of this work.
I love it.
So hopefully.
Well, it's funny. My, primary intention in this conversation was to cover Iboga. I don't have any experience with it. And I've never covered it on the show for whatever reason, at least not in an extensive way. So I was like, wow, okay, cool. I've been kind of waiting for the Iboga person to show up. I always like to, no one's like no one owns any modality, but I'm always kind of looking for one of the top dogs. You know what I mean? I don't want to get like the trickle down of like, oh, I tried it once or I did it once and now I facilitate. Like I want someone who really kind of understands any particular topic, and you obviously do. But there's so many fun things I want to talk to you about. So for those listening, the title is probably going to say Iboga something. So thank you for making it to this point. We're going to get into it in a moment here. Do you think your mineral supplements are doing the job? Well, look, it's great that you know how mineral deficient we all are, and you're doing something about it. But here's the deal, all right? Most of those pills out there are salt-based, and your body barely absorbs them. So basically, you pop a capsule, feel good about your life choices for a few minutes, and then pee it right out. And that's not health. That's just expensive urine. But I get it. I used to be that guy, stacking all the mineral supplements, looking for better sleep or energy, but never really feeling a difference. But eventually, I found Beam Minerals, and that's when everything changed. Beam is made from something called humate, one of the most mineral-dense substances on Earth. Beam extracts that ancient material, then purifies it into a concentrated liquid that is loaded with every essential mineral your body needs. And you'd think something that comes from the earth might taste nasty, but it actually tastes like water, and it works like rocket fuel. Ever since I've been on my daily Beam regimen, my energy's been steadier, my digestion has improved, and my brain, well, there's way less fog and way more focus, because that's what minerals do. So to get yourself fully mineralized, head over to beamminerals.com and use the code Luke to get 20% off your order. Because here's what's up. If you want your minerals to work, the solution is really simple. You need to absorb them, and that's why I take Beam. One more time for the kids in the back, that's beamminerals.com, and again, that code is Luke. But I wanted to ask you about, well, maybe this might actually dovetail into it in some way, but I wanted to ask you about what it's like to experience an eating disorder and to overcome it. It's one of the few kind of problems I haven't had, at least not in a kind of, clinically diagnosable way. I'm sure orthorexia has been at play at times, but I've always found that to be, I don't know, just out of the various human challenges, one that is just so mysterious and I just don't understand it.
Yeah.
And I've only known one person that I'm aware of that had that going on for quite some time. And it's one of the reasons that I went and sat with ayahuasca is because this person had shared with me early in life. She had many years of, I guess, bulimia, I think was the flavor of her issue. Hadn't been able to address it at all and went and sat with ayahuasca once and never threw up ever again.
Yep.
And I was like, wait, what? And that was one of those signs early on, and I was like, how, there's something to that, right? But she, shared some of that with me of what that experience was like. And it was just like, oh my God, this is like, seems like one of the gnarliest addictions, if you could classify it as that. So
yeah,
you might be able to be helpful to someone who is having that issue and, unpack that for us.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I had eating disorders ever since I was a teenager. And then when I was in my younger, like teens and early 20s, I had a modeling career, which really reinforced the eating disorder.
Oh, right.
And for me, I had binging and purging. So, I would do calorie restrictions. I took a lot, like I smoked tobacco. I convinced my parents that I had ADD so I could get on Adderall so I could have stimulants to stay thinner. Because I was like, oh, if I take this, I won't be hungry. And
have you ever tried crystal meth?
I have.
Is Adderall anything close to that if you take enough of it? Because I've never taken Adderall, but I've done some crystal meth, which I hated, but I would still do it because I just needed something.
Yeah. It was interesting because when I took crystal meth was when I was probably like between 15 to 17, and I would go to these rave parties and we would stay up like all night. This was in Seattle. And I just remember being up the entire night and not being tired at all, and being up the next day and not being tired at all. Yeah. And I would say Adderall gives you kind of that push, but it's not like if you were to look at the half-life of Adderall, and if there was a half-life for crystal meth, it feels like it would be a longer half-life.
Okay, got it.
But it definitely gives you that rush.
Yeah,
and
like the jaw clenching kind of.
Lots of the jaw clenching. And I mean, I loved MDMA. That was like my favorite when I was younger. And I feel like also kind of more on the stimulant side of things. And I would take, I used tobacco to stay thin. I would take different types of diuretics because when I would binge, I hated the feeling of the food in my body after the binge. So I couldn't make myself throw up. One time, I actually was like, I'm going to try to make myself throw up with Iboga. And it was a disaster. I don't know why I did this, but this just tells you how bad, the thinking that I was in at the time. But I put towels all over the bathroom, and I was just like, I'm going to drink this. I'm going to binge, and then I'm going to drink this bottle of Iboga.
What is Iboga? It makes you throw up?
It's a vomitive. Yeah, it's a pharmaceutical vomitive. You can buy it at like a CVS or something, and it's usually if you've taken poison. You
didn't know about the lemongrass tea at that point?
I know. That's way better. And I've taken some vomitives in Gabon that are pretty amazing well.
I bet.
But they make you feel good afterwards, and you feel good when you're purging. This, I felt like, whoa, what did I just take? And I just literally was just throwing up for so long. And then I was still throwing up, and I felt so sick. And that was probably when I was about 19, 20 years old. And then it wasn't until I was 30, right after I got divorced, that I realized that I actually had an eating disorder. Like, the whole time I was doing all of these things, taking all of these stimulants, taking all of these diuretics, I didn't realize that this was a disordered thing. And interestingly, it wasn't until I started when online, pro-anorexia websites started coming out, I would look up tips. I was never as thin as those girls. And, I'm a quarter Latino, so I tend to be a little more curvy. So I don't think I could ever be like those waifs in the, on the anorexic websites that I would see.
You want to know what's funny about that? Just to interject quickly.
Yeah.
I don't know any men that I'm aware of throughout my whole life that are attracted to excessively thin women.
Yeah.
I'm sure they exist, but I've never understood like why that aesthetic is so appealing to some women, and just the, you know, the industry of beauty and fashion at different times has gone through phases of that.
Yeah.
It's weird to me. Like, you could ask any one of my guy friends, like, you know, show them two pictures, like kind of a normal bodied woman and a woman who's like super heroin chic thin. No one's going to pick the emaciated woman. It's weird.
It's like, not feminine.
I'm like, where did this idea even come from? I don't get it.
I mean, you could say that it
and no offense to women that are super thin. Good for you. I'm sure you're attractive to a lot of people and it's all good. But it's always just been weird to me. I'm like, it's the same thing with like, I mean, I guess some guys probably like this, but when like women are like super muscular and ripped and like six-pack abs and stuff, I always think like, you need a little more body fat. Like, you don't look fertile.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
I feel the same way. And I love, you know, now I really love my body. And it's such a gift to be able to say that, even just knowing how I felt about myself in the past.
I don't think I'm quite there. So congratulations.
I love my body.
I still to this day like look in the mirror and I'm just like, I just see the things that I don't like. Just so weird.
It's hard. You know? I mean, like, I go through cycles, you know, where certain things will happen with my body. Like, you know, recently my skin started breaking out. I have a lot of food allergies. I have a dairy allergy, and I accidentally ate some dairy and it made my skin
really
break out. And
you're super sensitive then, huh?
I'm highly sensitive. And I remember like that was a hard time, but I would say like in terms of like not like isolating my thighs or isolating, you know, parts of my body in this reductionistic way and being like, oh God, your stomach, or oh God, your hips, or, you know, like I feel like I see my body as a whole and I see myself as a whole person. And it took a long time to get there. But I think when I turned 30 and I realized that I had the eating disorders, then I had to rip the Band-Aid off. And you know, the ripping the Band-Aid off phase, because like things go out of control. So for me, I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't really have any mentors that were like guiding me along the way, that were kind of like that grounding of like, so you don't get lost in all of the emotions and all of the things that come along with healing deep trauma. And so I immediately blew up from 105 pounds to 155 pounds.
Whoa.
I had adrenal fatigue. I could barely get out of bed.
That's a lot of weight.
That's like more than I think I would be if I was pregnant. I think maybe I'm wrong, but it was like my body and my psyche telling me that I'm not going to let you be the body that you want to be until you learn to love me. And that time was miserable. I remember because I had been divorced, like I needed this, like, it was like deep trauma of like validation that even though I'm 155 pounds, I'm still lovable. So I started having sex with guys, you know, after being married for 6 years, because I was just coming out of this divorce. And just feeling like I was like doing it for the sake of validation, but also like knowing that it wasn't really healthy for my psyche or my healing process. So I think it was like, I was like, not only like trying to heal something and maybe doing some things that were effective, but I think I was like also like creating more trauma and opening more things up along the way. So during that time, I discovered ayahuasca. I started working with ayahuasca, and it did really open me up in a way where I felt like I was really boxed in, you know, where I was like, I needed to be in control and I needed safety. And it definitely helped me with that. But I felt like it was also like ayahuasca is not my medicine because I'm already very open. Like I'm already very intuitive. I already have the channels open, but I feel like I needed to root in. Like to myself was really what I needed to do. So I worked with the ayahuasca, and I wasn't really feeling
the relief from the eating disorders. I felt like, things were getting worse. I was literally homeless. I went from owning 4 houses when I was married to being homeless. I had my car repossessed. My Audi A5 got hauled off on a repossession truck. I mean, I really hit rock bottom, and it was because, again, I didn't have the right guidance. And that's right when I met Joseph, my life partner. And, when I met him, I also met this doctor, Martin Polanco, who owns a clinic in Mexico, no longer open, called Crossroads Ibogaine. And now he's doing mostly treatments with veterans. He started a program with special ops veterans called Mission Within, which I helped facilitate working with Ibogaine for traumatic brain injury. And I met him in Ojai at this event. And synchronistically, I had a friend who lived with a Nima from Gabon in Costa Rica. And so it was like the Iboga was in my field. I had Ibogaine over here, one of my friends. She was actually working with Dr. Martin. She was a facilitator at the clinic in Mexico. And then at the same time, I had another friend that was also like just getting connected with Iboga. So it was like coming from all these places. And, this is at a time when, things like Bufo alvarius, like no one even knew what it was. Like I remember explaining to people the first time I did Bufo, they didn't even, they were like, "You're smoking a venom from a toad?" And so
that is a tough one to explain to people, even these days.
Yeah, and now now it's like everyone knows what it is, at least in the psychedelic community. And so I'm sitting with Martine. We're at this fun little outdoor kind of barbecue, kind of burner-esque party in Ojai with like really amazing people. And I was like, if ibogaine can interrupt addiction, opiates specifically, what do you think about eating disorders? And he's like, I don't know, but we could do an experiment. And so I don't know if I'm the first one that did, but in some ways I was for this clinic in Mexico. I was like the first explorer for going in for that, and actually what initiated the psychospiritual program at Crossroads. So I went into the journey, and really that was my intention, is to heal the eating disorders. And I saw so much around my birth trauma and how that was connected to my eating disorders.
Oh, yeah.
When I was really young, my mom, her mother, who's named Tricia, died. My grandmother, a month before I was born, from cancer. She was only 42 years old. And because my mother was grieving when she was born, she couldn't make breast milk. And so she gave me Similac and dairy milk, and I spit all of it up. And I had the worst diaper rash. And I learned later in life, which I just didn't have a connection to my body. I think a lot of it had to do with all the trauma that I had until I was like getting into my 30s, where I actually knew what was happening in my body, that I actually had IBS. Like I thought, a lot of what I was doing, even with the eating disorders, was self-medicating for a lot of the issues that I was having because of this early ancestral and birth trauma. I would say both, because I think my mom also has IBS as well. And come to find out, I developed growing up severe allergy to soy, severe allergy to dairy as a result of this birth trauma. And so I got down to the core of that. And then the other issue that was really big for me was I realized that I was making myself a prisoner of my own body by my view of separation, even the way I was looking at my body parts, the way I was looking at myself. And I was like, wait, that tree over there, that person over there, we're all the same. This is all one. But it wasn't like the kind of
non-duality, like the drop rejoining the ocean where I was like merging with consciousness. It was that I could see everything exactly as it is. And at the same time, recognize and see myself in all of it, but with this deep sense of presence and, being in the I am of my physical body. And that was the lock for me. And in that moment, I just cried. I just had this like deep, like wells of tears that had probably been in my body for decades. And all I could do was just say, thank you, Iboga. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And at the end, I said, how can I be of service to you? And the medicine said two things. One, tell your story. And two,
check. We just did it.
Yeah.
At least part of it.
And the second, which was later, was Martine asked me if I would facilitate the psycho-spiritual program at Crossroads. And the crazy thing is I came from a background of spa and wellness. I've been like building spas, been building wellness programs. I really understood that side of things, but I was definitely not what my mind thought of is what a shaman. I'm like, I'm not a shaman. And the medicine came in so strongly. It was like, I thought you asked how you could be of service. And I was like, and it was like, don't get stuck in titles or what it is, just show up. And like when I started working at Crossroads, I was facilitating the experience. I was helping the preparation. I was helping the integration. I was explaining and helping people like emotionally to be comforted through the experience. But the doctors were serving the medicine. I wasn't the shaman. Mm-hmm, so it was like the beginning of my learning process. And
that's a great entry point.
Yeah.
Right. It's like less responsibility in a sense, or an appropriate amount of responsibility for your capacity.
Exactly.
And every journey I've ever had, especially with Bufo, as I started to come out of it, I'm like, this is your life path. You need to serve this medicine. And then, I'm driving home and I'm like, well, maybe not. But I love the field so much and just the energy of it. I always have that sense. But then, I've never gotten a strong enough message like you did, where it's like, no, for real, like you're doing this.
Yeah.
But sometimes I secretly wish that I would, because there's so much magic, as you know.
Hey, check it out. Do you want to hit that flow state on demand without smoking your adrenals? Well, listen up. As an entrepreneur and now author, I love getting into new projects. But I've noticed how motivation starts to fade when I've been grinding on something for a while. And lately, I've been deep in the process of writing my first book, and let me tell you, that initial spark of creative thinking does not always last, especially in the afternoon. So that's why I started looking out for something that could reignite my drive without giving me anxiety like stimulating nootropics tend to do. Well, a couple months ago, thank God, I got turned on to something called Correct Energy. And as someone who has a very hard time getting excited about a new supplement, I was legit floored on day one, no joke. Because Correct Energy was designed to hit the dopamine system directly, and that's the one responsible for your clarity, mood, and drive. Now, most energy products jack you up with cheap caffeine and other stimulants, but Correct uses something called paraxanthine, a rare caffeine metabolite that gives you all the upsides of coffee without the tweaking out or sleep disruption. Then they stack it with Zynomite and an extra, two clinically studied plant extracts that amplify those effects by working synergistically on the same neurotransmitter pathways. This stuff is next level. Actually, it's a couple levels above next level. So if you want to light up your brain and your energy, here's what you do. Go to correctlife.com/Luke and use the code Luke to get 15% off. And heads up, that's correct with a K. Because if you guys want to aim high, you need a fuel that rises to the occasion. Again, that's correctlife.com/Luke. And don't forget to use that code Luke and save yourself some cash. It is legit.
I think that everyone really craves a feeling of community and connection. And I think there's a great desire in general for people to want to step up and be of service to the medicine for that reason. I think some people are destined, and in shamanic traditions, like I should say indigenous traditions, like the Bwiti, for example, when you're initiated, there are specific indicators that are not necessarily like you are meant to serve the medicine. There are specific symbols, specific words that are in another language. And when you kind of do your outing interview with the Nima is the one that gives initiations, you'll say something and they'll stop and they'll be like, oh, you're supposed to serve the medicine. And then they say it to you, that means you have to move to Gabon and live here for 10 years minimum, or until we say you're finished training.
Wow.
So, I think there are people, and I think Bufo has its own lineage it's like the medicine of the new earth, because it came here at a specific time for a specific reason. And I can't speak to what that initiation is or who's ordained to do that, because you very well may be. But I'm just speaking generally to the public, in that I really believe that there is a new way that is very high integrity, very ethically focused, very guided and informed by many different indigenous elders that are helping to, like the Kogi call the Westerners' little brother, help their little brothers to create the rituals.
Bookmark that, because I really want to talk about the Kogi, but I don't want to divert the Iboga story. But I'm so fascinated by these people, like honestly. So we'll come back to it.
We have so many rabbit holes. I knew when I first met
Allison, she was showing me some pictures. She'd gone to an event with a bunch of indigenous elders, and she showed me the mamos and their little hats. And she's like, the mamos, they're my favorite people in the world. And I'd never heard of them. And I was like, I don't know, just the energy in the picture of these cats. I was like, whoever they are, I know nothing about them. They've got some shit figured out. Just they're turned on. So remind me if I forget to come back to them.
Oh, I already am like, I want to go down that portal now. So, the way I see these new containers, the new way of how we are in community together is that really, I don't think it's going to be one person that's going to solve the issues with humanity. I see that in us all being in a collective healing together, that there will be a level of maturity. And in, many of these initiations, like the Kogi have initiations, the Bwiti have initiations, there are tests to show that your consciousness has fully opened, that the initiation has actually taken. And we need to have those tests as well. And once that consciousness has taken, then I see groups of people coming together communally and creating councils of emergent fields where there is kind of insights coming within the circle that collectively bring about the healing that we need for humanity in the new way that we move. And I think it's really important. So that calling is very beautiful and very valid.
I think because I just love the experience of transformation. I love being in the presence of someone who's in the process of healing and waking up. In the many years I spent, very active in recovery, I had the honor of participating in so many people, so many men that I worked with, just their lives completely changing, not because of me, but just because I shared principles with them. And if they chose to apply those principles to their life, boom, that's what principles do. They affect change. And I really miss that, because my life is situated now for various reasons where I don't have that as part of my day-to-day experience. And I kind of miss that, but also had a certain ceiling with that particular type of work, which would take too long to explain. But I miss just watching the flowering of a human being, you know, and in the medicine space, that flowering can happen real quick.
Yeah.
It's like, when I would witness that, it would be over the course of months or years. And, you know, a guy would come in and he's got one day sober and he's a total train wreck. And there's there's gradual improvement. And then maybe in 5 years, you're like, damn, he started a company. He's got a wife. He's got a kid. He's he's making a contribution to the collective, in whatever way, rather than being a deficit like most addicts are before they get help.
Yeah.
But in the medicine space, it's just like, whoa, things can happen. You're outside of space and time, right? So it's like the flowering of consciousness can be so immediate, and it's so beautiful to just witness. And that, I think that's the thing that always appeals to me. But then, like, I was in a ceremony a couple of weeks ago with a beautiful man from Colombia who was a primary modality is Wachuma. And he started drinking Wachuma when he was, I think, 7 years old or 9 years old in Colombia. And dude knows that medicine inside and out, right? And I'm just watching him facilitate, and the stories he's telling, you know, stories of the Andean peoples of, you know, all different tribes and what are now called countries, but used to just be, you know, a bunch of tribes on a mountain range.
Yeah.
Just his way he's weaving stories, the songs they're singing, just how he's holding down that space. And I'm like, I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like the amount of dedication and work that went into him being able to hold that medicine in that way. I mean, it would be nice, but like that was his life path and I have a different life path. So as much as I want to, you know, be more involved in those kind of experiences or facilitate them, I look at that and I'm like, I mean, I don't need to do it because I can just send someone to him.
Yeah.
You know, and he's the carrier of that lineage and that wisdom. And it's like, I have reverence for the way he does it. So I kind of come back to earth and I go, well, I guess I do another podcast, you know, and maybe, you know, guide people to your work or someone like him and, you know, maybe act as a bridge more than the person who's actually the origin of that experience, you know, but there still is a part of me that's like, oh man, you know, but I would feel irresponsible if I didn't go through the proper training and initiation. Oh, the other thing too is like, you know, sitting with someone who's who has that level of mastery of their particular medicine space and seeing the way they operate while also taking the medicine.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, I think I could sit with a homie and give them a bunch of mushrooms and like hold it down, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know if I could do that if I'm on 5 grams of mushroom also.
Oh yeah.
I actually had that happen once. I was journeying and with some people on a hunting trip, and we did some like lemon tech mushrooms. And I was like, oh, how many grams is that? Like 2.5 grams. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
Holy shit. It was so strong, right? And so I'm laying in the grass out there, just tripping balls. And the facilitator guy of the trip comes up and he's like, hey, your buddy's having kind of a hard time. You know, he's like asking for you. Can you hold space? And I was like, I didn't have boundaries at that moment. I was like, oh yeah, sure. Okay. And homeboy comes up, he's having a full meltdown. You know, he's like, he got caught in the mind and was like just spiraling into some really weird insecurities and stuff like that. Not weird, but just he was struggling. And he walked up and he's wearing all camo and we're in the woods. And I realized like, I didn't even think I could talk. You know, I looked at him, he started like melding into the environment and he's like, you know, having a really hard time. He's like, dude, I need your help. And I'm like, I am not equipped for this, you know, and I did my best, but it was a great lesson in like, dude, that's a whole other level of space holding to be able to be in a deep medicine experience yourself and have the wherewithal to hold it down for, let alone, you know, a group of people, but even one person.
Yeah.
You know?
It's funny because with Iboga, you know, I always use the analogy when you take Iboga, it's like being drunk on the ocean during a hurricane in a canoe and trying to stand up in the canoe. Because it takes all of your senses, literally like there was an ibogaine conference I went to in 2016 where it showed a picture of someone's like energy field around the body, and it showed while they were on the ibogaine and how it pulls all the senses inward because it's pulling you into yourself, pulling you into your shadow, versus like ayahuasca expands you. So it's like your auric field expands.
That's interesting. That makes sense. Yeah.
So you literally like could fall over and you have to like walk people to the bathroom and make sure that they can, and they get very nauseous. And so in the initiations, a lot of times they're having you, while you're on the medicine, do these crazy dance moves or dance with fire or knives or just like do all these crazy tests while you're on the medicine. And sometimes I do really well. Sometimes it's really difficult. I feel like in ceremony, it's the only medicine that I take a little bit of medicine because you have to be in the field of the medicine for it to kind of pull you in and kind of be part of it. And it has a
you have to be tuned into the frequency, right? Like your radio wants to be on the same station, but maybe the volume is not as high as the person you're facilitating for.
Exactly. And it's almost like, when I'm working with an individual and I just take a small amount, I'm very sensitive to the medicines. It's almost like you can have like this X-ray vision of like what's happening in the field that I wouldn't maybe necessarily have at such a high level. And I don't really believe with some medicines, it's right. Like, for example, 5-MeO DMT, you shouldn't take it with someone else because you're going to be completely gone, or you might be like throwing up, or,
I mean, with that stuff, I've heard crazy stories, and I know you facilitate a lot, but I mean, I've talked to facilitators and they're like, dude, people like take their clothes off, try to have sex with you, jump over balconies, like, I mean, people can do some wild shit. So, there needs to be an adult in the room.
Someone needs to like make sure the body is safe, make sure they're breathing, make sure that if they have to purge, they're actually getting to the purge bowl. And I mean, they can choke on the vomit if, because they're not even there sometimes to know what's happening. And so like just from a medical perspective, you definitely have to have the adult in the room with 5-MeO. And there's a lot of other, reasons why. And like you were saying, I've had people try to, run off. I've had people try to attack me.
Really?
Yeah. Joseph got a fractured rib one time from someone that punched him on, I don't know if he is okay with me sharing that, but it was on a retreat.
Side tangent, and I promise to the audience I will go get back to the Iboga because there's so much about this I want to unpack. But one of the fascinating things about 5-MeO for me, not as a experiencer, but just witnessing people, is the unpredictability of their reaction.
Yes.
I mean, I've seen people lay there and just smile and not move a muscle.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, whoa. My friend Harry, the first time I sat, we did it kind of in a succession in a small group. My friend Harry, who's a beautiful human being and a mushroom shaman for ages, since like the 80s. He takes his dose, he lays back and smiles, and speaking to the somatic thing, he just does the wave the whole time. His body just waves in the most beautiful way. I was just sitting there going, wow, what is going on in there? And then I've seen people like jump up and look around and say all kinds of weird shit. I'm just like, it's so trippy just to see what you're going to get. And even in my own experiences, there's been times where I'm super chill and like I'm just having a beautiful internal experience. One time I resisted and got up and it was like freaking out. It's just like, it's so weird. You're like, you're there, but you're not there.
Yeah.
It's a trip.
With 5-MeO, so I started working with it at Crossroads because in the psycho-spiritual program, after the ibogaine treatment, you have a couple rest days, and then we go to this beach house in Baja and Rosarita, and then would give the 5-MeO dose there. And
interesting. What was the rationale of that sequence?
Now coming from a traditional perspective as an initiate of Bwiti, I don't necessarily agree with it, but ibogaine can be pretty heavy. It can take you into some really dark places. And sometimes, and I think ibogaine is very different than the whole plant Iboga. And with the ibogaine, you know, like usually we'd have 6 beds, and so 6 people, and they, you know, I would say maybe 2 of the 6 people sometimes would have just like this amazing, like, wow, beautiful. It was, you know, like, you know, kind of like my experience that I had with the eating disorders. But then a lot of people are just kind of like, what the F happened? You know, they're like, they're just like, you know, because they just had like, went through the soul car wash, you know, and they just were turned in every which way and just had no idea what was happening. And the 5-MeO would just kind of bring the light back for them, where it would just like open the heart and reconnect. And so it makes sense in that particular format, and really has been effective. And definitely when I was working with Mission Within, with a lot of the special ops and, you know, Navy SEALs, it was always really incredible for them because, you know, they had been in a dark period for a long time. Many of them were very depressed, even suicidal. And so the 5-MeO really kind of just like felt like this, like, you know, final rinse of like, just like bringing back lightness. And not everyone has, as you said, a positive experience with the 5-MeO.
I mean, there is a pretty, well, I'm not that experienced with it, but there's a pretty beautiful afterglow.
Yes.
I mean, I felt like in the days following 5-MeO, I'm pretty sure I'm enlightened. I'm good, you know?
Yeah.
And then slowly, you know, the persona starts to kind of like edge back in. Like, okay, yeah, I'm totally human and neurotic again. But man, I mean, I've had some beautiful days after 5-MeO where I'm just like, whoa, imagine if you could just live like this all the time, you know?
And we can.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, it's just like, you know, what I noticed with people that do 5-MeO is if they meditate, wherever they were able to go to in meditation, it kind of like opens the ceiling. And
totally.
When you think about like brainwave states, you know, you have like theta waves, you know, when you're relaxed, you have delta. When you sleep, you have, am I saying that right? And then gamma is the highest brain coherence. And they did some studies in Wisconsin with these monks that had meditated for many years. And most of them like went into like full gamma, like, you know, in terms of like, there's a scale of hertz. I can't remember what the scale is, but they would go into what's called high gamma frequency almost immediately. And so 5-MeO definitely, I mean, it stimulates some alpha, which is learning. But it stimulates a lot of gamma. And so what happens is once you know that place, it's kind of the idea of reactivations. I
call that night school.
Night school, like, exactly.
That's terrifying though, man. Like first time that happened, I think, it was after my first Bufo. And, you know, I don't even think it was that night. I think it might have been the next night. And I wake up in the middle of the night in the full journey and I freaked out. It was scary because I was like, I didn't know if it was gonna go away, you know?
Yeah.
It was so weird.
Yeah, the reactivations, a lot of times, there's different things you can take. GABA can really help with the reactivations because a lot of people do have them. Also, a lot of people are deficient in glycine. And so you can take glycine, which is really good for sleep as well. And if you do, you know, really, I can't remember what the exact dosage range is off the top of my head. Maybe I can look it up and we can put it in the show notes because there might be some human out there suffering from reactivation.
I was warned about it, but I thought, you know, it's hard to, because it's such an intense experience. You can't really imagine like, it's just going to happen on its own, you know? And for some reason, it doesn't happen when you're driving down the road, thank God, but it's more jarring because you're sleeping, right? And you wake up and you're like, oh, you know, you're not dreaming and you're like having the full thing, you know? And it's like, what the fuck?
Were you
super weird
taking high doses when you had the reactivations? Like, did you do multiple
No, the first time I had that, I think I had... I mean, it was the full send, but I only did one.
You only did one?
The first day,
Huh.
Yeah.
That's
but that was, you know, that was also, you know, the first time, I think the magnitude of the experience was so big, I didn't even get it. Like I did it in Venice, you know, which is like not ideal. I think being somewhere in nature would probably be optimal.
Way better.
But yeah, I was like, wow, that was wild. I drove home and was just kind of like, I didn't get it. And then the reactivations or the night school happened. And I was like, okay, what's happening here? It wasn't until the second couple times where I really understood like the magnitude of that experience, what had happened.
Yeah.
The second time, here's an interesting side note. Do you know the work of David Hawkins and the map of consciousness?
I love the scale of consciousness.
I've been just obsessed with his work forever. And I have a friend who's a longtime, student of his and whatnot, and he's really good at muscle testing. Just literally millions of calibrations. So he's like the only one I really trust with that. And after, I think it was my second 5-MeO experience, I knew something profound happened. And so I sent him a text and I was like, hey, could you calibrate my level of consciousness between the following hours on this date? Which I never do. I don't want my ego to get attached to some kind of metric like that. So I don't care. I'm just keep doing my work. But I was so curious because it felt like I was in a really high space. And so he sends me a text back with his report. And it was like, I forget, it was like, for 1 minute, you were at 850 or something. We were talking about like, beyond enlightenment,
Wow.
And thankfully I didn't have some sort of attachment to that, but it just showed me, the empirical evidence that like why it can be so transformative and life changing is, the vast majority of humans live probably many, many lifetimes and never even get a glimpse of that for 1 second, so just how impactful is that to even if you're not aware of it while it's happening, to just experience 60 seconds of that level of consciousness. It's going to change you.
It for everyone. And it's interesting because, I've worked with people that were like long-time spiritual practitioners that had never taken any psychedelics. And like their first one was 5-MeO DMT.
That's crazy.
And I mean, just to see the look on their face, because they're like, yeah, this is nothing. I've meditated. They're not saying it in that way, but it's like you can tell, like, there's like most people have fear when they come in right before they take the first hit. They're like, I have no idea what's going to happen. And it's healthy respect for the medicine because it's
that's
powerful.
why I don't do it all the time.
But yeah, exactly. But with, these practitioners that I've worked with, they're just like in the state of Om, literally like no fear whatsoever. And then they come out of it, they're like very relaxed. And then they come out of it and they're like, wow, I didn't know those planes existed before, and it's pretty cool. I definitely think that, I always say psychedelics, like, whenever I used to, like, I love kids and I don't have any, but I've as when I was younger, I've watched a lot of kids and I also have a lot of, nieces and nephews. And I always say that psychedelics are akin to like, how you kind of trick kids into like eating their vegetables, like you cut them into like little starfish, or you make them look sparkly or cool, or you like make some story up about it. And then they're like, they eat the vegetables because they wouldn't eat them. They want like the dessert, or they want the chicken nuggets or something else. I feel like psychedelics help little brother, the Western culture, in understanding how vital it is that we're doing all the other spiritual practices and our daily practice and self-care. And none of the results that you get from psychedelics, or I should say very little, are going to actually really truly stick and ground and integrate unless you're doing all the other things. And that's why obviously it's worked well for you.
Totally. Yeah. Check this out. With everything that's going on with our food, air, and water, detoxing is no longer optional. And if you really want vitality, it's an absolute must. One of the best ways to remove toxins from the body is through sweating. But did you know that not all sweat is created equal? When you hop into an infrared sauna, the light is absorbed deeply by the body, causing your cells to vibrate.
And that raises core temperature and enhances natural metabolic processes, pulling out nasty toxins like aluminum, cadmium, and even mercury. The sauna I use on the reg is my Amplify Full Spectrum Sauna from Sunlighten. Sunlighten's patented and science-backed technology provides the most effective, high-quality, near, mid, and far infrared available. They actually have 4 different sauna collections, each of which features different combinations of light and varying aesthetics to fit both your needs and your decor. And with any Sunlighten sauna, you can rest assured that you're going to sweat fast, sweat deep, and support your detox. And by the way, you can learn what makes Sunlighten my top pick on the Lifestylist podcast, episode 477. So make sure to check that out if you want the deep dive. And then when you're ready to treat yourself to the world's best infrared sauna, visit get.sunlighten.com/Luke Storey and use the code Luke Storey to save up to $600. You can also find that link in the show notes on your podcast app. And obviously, it would make 0 sense to detox while exposing yourself to high levels of EMF. And that's why Sunlighten designed their heating panels to produce almost none, so you can relax and detox safely. Again, that link is get.sunlighten.com/Luke Storey, and the code is Luke Storey. I've observed, too, that I think it's really helpful to, and maybe for some people it's not necessary, but for me, I know it's served me to have some framework of spiritual practice and understanding.
Yeah.
In the case of something like 5-MeO-DMT, I mean, I have a reference point of just levels of consciousness, for example, or, just different things that here's a good example, like having a conceptual understanding of duality and non-duality,
yes.
Right? And it's like, oh yeah, I get that. Yeah, everything's really one, but we're in a body so that we perceive separation, yada, yada, right? Like reading about that over many, many years, trying to, embody that or integrate that as like a way of experiencing life and experiencing the world. But having it actually happen in a ceremony and being able to go, oh, I know what this thing is. This is that thing I've been reading about the mystics and saints and sages for thousands of years have been telling us about from the other side, and now it's like, okay, cool. Wow. That's the thing versus just like, oh, that was a trip. It's like, oh no, there's something so special about what just happened because there's like a scaffolding for that peak experience to rest on and build upon,
100%.
And I think this is was a wake up to my naivete about the nature of things is, having, as I was saying earlier, like experiences that really narrowed my path in terms of like my integrity, just to say that, right? I just have to live like such a clean path in order for me to feel okay, and it's also very rewarding to do so, right?
Yeah.
Integrity feels good. But it's like taken me some years to really not be naive about, the fact that many people who work with psychedelics a lot are still totally untrustworthy and fucked up.
Yeah.
And who knows why, but I think part of that might be a lack of, structure and kind of understanding, like something to actually build on those. For me, it's like the 12 steps, it's like, wow, such a great fundamental starting point of just the basics of how to be a decent human.
Yeah.
And so it's like, cool, where am I at any given moment on those tenets, on that basic framework? Not 100%. That I do so perfectly, but I think, wow, if you were someone who had none of that in practice and had, even no matter how profound of an experience you have, I mean, you could be on your 47th ayahuasca journey and still emerge into the same patterns, even though you had a profound experience of God or you had a healing or you realized some things about yourself, but you don't really have like the tools to put into work, to your point of, okay, cool. Now, how do I actually embody this and continue to build on that experience or those realizations?
Yeah. I mean, you articulate that so beautifully. The way I see it is that these teachings are essential, like all of the indigenous ancestral knowledge, traditional knowledge systems were meant to go hand in hand with the medicine. And that's why your friend, who is the incredible Wachuma teacher or facilitator, I should say, is so incredible and potent in the work that he does, is because he's carrying the power of that.
There's also the idea that, a lot of the teachings that we receive, whether it's, the 12-step program, whether it's the Bible, whether it's, David R. Hawkins, these are all secondhand teachings. They're great to understand, but where did they actually come from? They came from the primordial, and you only truly know them as truth until you've actually experienced them. And that's what initiation is all about. So you have the scaffolding that is a sense-making tool that says, okay, I recognize that. And so you were able to accept it as truth, but it wasn't truth for you. It wasn't like anchored into your being, like, I can trust this, until you had that firsthand, direct initiatic experience with that knowledge.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Tell me more about Iboga. I think we skipped over, I don't know, I always make assumptions. Just anyone that's listening already has a basic fundamental understanding of the topics we cover, but I'm sure there's thousands of people that are going to hear this. They're like, wait, what is Iboga? What are you guys talking about? Take me back a little bit for where I should have started. I was doing my job really well. Is it, we've got the Bwiti tribal people from the equator zone somewhere in Africa. Is it a shrub? Is it leaves? What's the history of it? Cultural context and so on, as just a reverse framework for us.
So the Bwiti is probably one of the oldest indigenous initiatic traditions. It is a tradition that you are initiated into. You are not born into.
So is Bwiti, would it be more akin to a religion than like a tribe of people?
Think of it as the difference between the Kogi and the Kogi Mamus.
Okay.
Like, the Kogi the Kogi Mamus are determined through divination, and they spend 9 years in darkness.
It's so wild.
And and then they are given specific tests to see if their consciousness has opened, and if they don't, if they haven't, then they go back in. Like, I met one Mamu who spent 27 years in darkness, which is insane. And they telepathically communicate, just like, what if you read a lot of the ancient books, it was believed that during the Lemurian time, people telepathically communicated. That was the mode. And I'm sure it's coming back when you think about things like the telepathy tapes, for example. Yeah. But not to get too off of topic on the Iboga itself. So you're initiated into this tradition. It tends to be at a young age, and it's in the most rough, harsh, hard to survive place probably in the entire world. So you have to be initiated so that you don't die, because you're going to get eaten by a jaguar, a poisonous snake, eat something that's bad for you and get sick and die, have an accident. So you need to have that connection to your soul. So the initiation is essentially where you first build that unseverable connection to your soul, and that you start to drive in life with your soul. And that's the most important part of that. And so the initiation itself, there are many different kinds of initiation. Some of them do not involve Iboga at all. There are specific men's initiations, such as the Mwiri, which is actually separate from Bwiti, but the Bwiti men receive this initiation where there's no Iboga used whatsoever. And so in the typical initiation with Iboga, it usually lasts for a couple weeks. It can be as short as a week, but usually a couple weeks, where you're doing weeks of purification rituals. You're taking vomitifs to clean your body. You're taking doing these smoke baths called ifulu, which is kind of like a sweat lodge. It's like your own personal sweat lodge where a hole is dug and a fire is built underneath, and different sacred plants and incenses are meant to kind of clear the darkness and the trauma out of the body. And then there's specific divinations that are done for specific types of healing with different plants. There's different types of like one ritual is called vaccinations, and vaccinations are actually for your protection. They're for spiritual protection, and you're cut with a razor blade, and different medicines and saps, and even like burnt bugs, like sometimes burnt spider, depending on the individual's specific.
Did you do this?
I was supposed to do it last time I was in Gabon, and I got in my head about it a little bit. I was like, I wonder if they use a fresh razor blade. I wonder if I'll get tetanus from this.
Right.
And after my initiation and my outing interview, he was like, okay, you can go now. And I was like, I can? And so I went.
Sweet.
And I was like,
okay, no take backs, bye.
Yeah, so I left. I paid for it because there's like a little extra cost for specific kinds of healings that you're supposed to do. But I think next time I go, I will take it if I'm meant to take it. But it's meant to protect you from illness or misfortune, or there's specific types of rituals for removing like family curses, which they believe, like ancestral karma is essentially curses in the lineage. And there are specific types of purifications for that. And then you do many, many, many baths. And in the baths, depending on what tradition, I'm primarily initiated in the Bwiti Fang lineage, but I've done one initiation in Gonde Masoko, which is more like the Bwiti from the jungle, like the pygmy Bwiti, which the Fang Bwiti is a little bit more syncretic. It's almost kind of like a merger of like Christianity and Catholicism with Bwiti. And they both...
I've seen a little bit of that. Yeah, some of the iconography and like a Western kind of Christian influence in some of those just videos I've seen and things. Like, oh, that's so interesting. How did that get infused with an indigenous, heritage? It's interesting.
Yeah.
That merged somehow. And also in Brazil, the, what's the...
Santo Daime?
Yeah. It's such a trip. It's like they're taking ayahuasca in churches.
Yeah.
It's trippy.
I mean, there's two things. I mean, if you think about like Santeria, and you think about Santo Daime, and you think about even some of the Fang lineages, a lot of these traditions, because of colonialism, had to mask their practices to be able to practice. And then on the other side of the coin too, in the real history of the Fang, they came from northern Gabon, and before they started working with Iboga, they actually worked with a different sacrament, and they ended up like meeting the Bwiti and actually bringing Iboga into their practice. But it's believed that the Fang came from Egypt, and many of them believe they're from Abydos. And so our lineage of Bwiti, which my Bwiti father, who has passed, Tumberbenga, said that it's actually more connected to Egyptian, which is what I believe is the original Christianity and Catholicism. Right. So it's more Egyptian influence.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And I love the ritual. There's so much ritual in all of initiation and Bwiti, and everything is about restoring balance. So when you're going through every initiation and ritual, there's different types of clays and different types of things that you wear that are symbolic to kind of different cosmic events of death and rebirth, which I'm sure you're familiar with in other lineages that you've experienced ceremony. And one of the things about the Bwiti story of initiation and origin is that the Bwiti believe the man and the woman are equal. So the story of
what? No.
Adam and Eve isn't about Adam's rib coming and out and making Eve. It's that Adam and Eve were equals, and it was actually the feminine that. So there's the tree
of life, and there's the tree of knowledge. And I like to think of it as, really it's the left and right hemisphere of the brain. It's Atlantis and Lemuria. And when we think about the tree of life, this is the feminine. And, I think of like plants that are connected with the tree of life are acacia, ayahuasca, 5-MeO-DMT, NN-DMT. The tree of knowledge of good and evil is Iboga. And it teaches you about how to live in duality and how to find the balance between
I need
the tool.
Because I'm having a hard time.
We all do. I mean, it's a constant living, breathing meditation. I mean, the word that is spoke very commonly because there's a very deep etiquette of communication within ceremony. So when one breaks silence, they say, bukaye. And then everyone responds, aye. And what that represents is the in-breath and the out-breath, how everything is in relationship and harmony and balance, that we're always in that space. So the idea of the symbology of red and white in Bwiti is the semen of the man and the blood of the woman, as where the Catholic Church took that and turned it into the blood and body of Christ, all on the side of the masculine.
Wow, that's deep.
Yeah.
If you've been through puberty or menopause or even the fabled manopause, you'll know that our hormones change throughout our life, and that's just how nature rolls. Now, what's not natural is that most of us no longer get key elements from our diet due to things like industrial agriculture. And when you're deficient in minerals, it can throw your entire system out of whack, especially when it comes to keeping your hormones in balance. And having enough magnesium in your system is a key to making that possible. So if you found yourself struggling with mood swings, getting stressed and irritated, or even craving foods you're not used to craving, you might be among the 75% of Americans who are magnesium deficient. To keep my hormones in check every day, I get a full spectrum dose of magnesium from Magnesium Breakthrough. It's a really unique product because it's got all 7 essential forms of magnesium, including magnesium orotate, which is amazing for metabolic and hormonal health. So to get yourself all magged up, go to buyoptimizers.com/Luke and punch in the code Luke10 to save 10%. For my routine, I take 2 capsules before bed, which also helps me sleep, and then 1 in the morning to help me feel grounded and relaxed throughout my day. So go to buyoptimizers.com/Luke and use that code Luke10 to save 10%.
So when you take the Iboga, all of these preparation rituals are designed so that you are prepared to have a mystical experience. Because, I think a lot of times people, because they, in the Western psychedelic movement, or even with plant medicines, when they're not facilitated with traditional knowledge, you're walking into the medicine like you're showing up on a date with dirty clothes. You're there for a date with creator. And you want to show up clean, because then creator's like, I'm going to give you this experience with me. I'm going to show you who you are. And so the likelihood of an individual to have a mystical experience when they've done all these cleansing rituals is like almost 100%, as were people who go into an ibogaine clinic and they take a flood dose of ibogaine, they're going to go through the soul car wash. They might not even have a mystical experience at all, because the psychedelic is doing all the heavy lifting. It's like, I got to show you this thing about your past, and I've got to do this, as we're like, I'm sitting in the river confessing all the things that I've done, even before, like doing a deep life review, even before I go into the ceremony. And then if I miss something, then that might come up in the ceremony, but I'm confessing it before, because I want to be completely clean going in, so that I can just, use that time to be shown what I need to see, what I'm here for, what my purpose is, who I am. And so, that's really how Iboga is used in Bwiti, and it is the most wondrous plant in nature. So it's a shrub that can get as tall as like a small tree, and I don't know if I'm over exaggerating, if it's like 100 feet. It might be, maybe it's 70 feet tall maximum. And it is in the family, it's called Tabernath Iboga. And it gets these almost like waxy peppers. And those are the seeds of the plant. And then it has, it's very leafy. And the plant itself is not medicinal. The fruits and the leaves are not used in any way, except for there is a divination ritual that is performed. When you are getting initiated, you go to the Iboga tree in the jungle. That is the tree that will do your initiation. And the Nima makes a prayer to this tree, and it says, Tricia Eastman, daughter of Edward Eastman and Annette Ortega, is here today to work with the Iboga, and this is the reason why she's coming to the medicine. Do we have your blessing? And so before they can even take the plant, they take a leaf and they put on the hand and they go like this. And if it makes a popping sound, it means that the plant has given its permission for you to have it. And so,
what if there's no popping sound? You pack it up and try tomorrow.
You don't. I don't know. I haven't had that happen before.
I'd be like, dude, I flew all the way here from Texas. Like, come on, we got to try that again.
Oh my God! I mean, I remember there was a retreat. I used to work with a Nima, and I was the first person to bring him to Costa Rica after he graduated from his training in Gabon. And in the West, we do things to compensate for the lack of training that we have, the 10 years lack of training that we have. And in the West, we give an EKG to make sure someone is safe to take the medicine because there are cardiac risks with Iboga. They do not do that in Gabon. Instead, they do divination, and they make sure the person is through the divination has the blessing. So this guy shows up at the retreat and he says, you cannot take Iboga. And he's like, what? He's like, your heart is not good. And so he had to sit through the whole retreat and do the whole thing, but he couldn't take the medicine.
Whoa.
So it does happen.
I think you articulated something so important, and I didn't really realize it till you were explaining it, but the context of tradition and ritual that goes with the sacrament.
Yeah.
I realized when you were explaining that, I mean, this is like so in depth beyond anything I've ever experienced to that degree. But, I mean, at any given time, I mean, psychedelic medicines are very readily available. You know what I mean? And I'll have the idea like, maybe I should take some, maybe mushrooms might be the exception to this because I have had some unguided experiences in nature and whatnot that have been beautiful, and they didn't have all of the kind of accoutrement and the set, the set and setting that you described. But I don't think I would ever work with a plant medicine or psychedelic that wasn't facilitated with that kind of reverence.
Yeah.
It feels sketchy to me. I actually had one experience with DMT that was kind of in an Airbnb and kind of facilitated, and I made my way through it, but there wasn't like a space clearing, the space itself was not aesthetically beautiful. There was like no music or anything being burned, or, like it kind of lacked all of that. And that's the only way I've ever done it.
Yeah.
And I was like, this feels a little weird, I went through with it and it all worked out. But I think other than that, that was the only time that I did that. And it's just because it's something I felt really called to. But I don't know. I don't think I would just like sit at home and be like, cool, I'm going to drink some ayahuasca. Like I would never do that. I feel like it needs that, I don't know, the care and it's not just about honoring the traditions, but it's like trusting that these traditions were created and have stood the test of time for a reason.
Yes.
It's not just superstition or just like, well, that's the way we've always done it. Like, no, we've always done it this way because it's important and it is meaningful. And if you want that transcendent experience, And not only just in the case of like, I don't know, just energetic hygiene and keeping entities out and all that, which is a whole other thing. But it's like, no, we want to facilitate the best possible outcome.
Yes.
And the appropriate level of depth of experience for you, the participant, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's good that I have that understanding because I love the psychedelic space.
Yeah.
I would probably do it so much I would lose my grounding if I didn't prefer that it's done in that way, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I love the way that you explain that because I do think people are doing too much psychedelics, like the amount of benefit that you can get from one session. Like when you do an initiation, you don't take anything for an entire year afterwards. You spend that whole year integrating.
That's a long integration.
Yeah. And you don't really need to. I mean, maybe a microdose, and this is like done in a conscious way where you're receiving it from the Nima and it's in respect and reciprocity to the plant, not just like, oh, I'm going to microdose Iboga. But, you know,
not as like as a nootropic.
Not as a nootropic.
A biohack.
But when we look at, you know, I don't know if you've read Rupert Sheldrake's book on morphic fields.
No, I haven't, but I'm familiar generally with the concept. Yeah.
It's being proven more and more, and I believe it, you know, because like, you know, the idea of these instructions of, you know, how does a ant colony build these perfect geometric, you know, structures, like real architecture that's structurally sound,
right?
But they're all working independently and they have some like shared set of instructions. So the same applies to medicine. So when you are initiated, that within each medicine, there is an egregore, which is like a collective intelligence of that medicine since the beginning of time that it was used. And when you become a Nima, you receive the power, is what they call it, the power of the Bwiti. That power is passed to you, which essentially means when you open up the ceremony, literally you're ripping the fabric of reality, and all the ancestors that have ever worked in that lineage of Bwiti are like coming in, all of the elementals, all of the spirits that are connected with the medicine and the protections that are connected with that lineage.
That part is crucial.
Coming in.
Which I didn't understand in the beginning, but the protection, the entity shit is very real. Like I never believed in any of that stuff, to be honest. And, you know, I've come to change my tune.
I mean, it is a little scary when you see and understand that stuff, when you get to the point where you understand that. And then you see how literally there are ceremonies happening with people that don't understand how to open and close those doors properly and are creating dark portals into places they don't even know. And, you know, I won't go too deep into the rabbit hole on that dark one.
No, I mean, it's true. The first time I sat with ayahuasca, I was just really fascinated by and enamored with the facilitators, this big team. And there was a huge group of people, probably, I don't know, 50 people or something, which I wouldn't prefer these days, but it is what it is, what it was. Anyway, I was watching one of the women and she was going around just doing interesting things with burning things and whatever, saying her prayers, walking around the room. And I asked her afterward, I was like, what were you doing when you were doing this thing and that thing? She goes, oh, I was setting the grid. I was like, setting the grid? She goes, yeah, dude. You think we just walk in the room and like open these portals? We're creating a grid, an energetic grid that sets the boundaries on what non-physical beings are allowed in the space and which ones aren't. And it sounded kind of nuts to me at the time, but you know, in my subsequent experiences, I very much realized how important that is.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know, it's hard to explain because it's a non-linear thing. And those are realms that most of us never have experience with or fully understand. But man, I really have a lot of respect for that intentionality, you know, especially with ayahuasca. I mean, you're getting into some super trippy dimensional places, you know. Do you sense like with psychedelics in general that the feeling that I get is that all of these sort of dimensions that open are here all the time. But we, in our normal waking state, because of the limitations that creation put on us for a reason, right? We need to be able to like, oh, I'm in a body and you're there and I'm here and there's a glass of water. Like it needs to kind of be held in this facade of the simulation in order for us to do our thing here. But it seems to me the different medicines kind of, they're doorways into these dimensions that are always here and always around us, but we just can't perceive, or most people, unless you're really, a deep meditator or something, most of us can't perceive or enter into these different, dimensions or areas of consciousness. And that I think maybe that's why it's so important that someone is like holding it down in terms of creating a grid or however you want to call it, or the rituals that you describe, because if you're not a skilled initiate, then you're opening these doors and you might not know who's coming in and out of the doors, or you might go through one and not know how to come back and so on, right?
Yeah.
So it's like everything I'm seeing and experiencing in a ayahuasca journey, for example, is here right now as we're talking.
Yes.
But I don't perceive it because I didn't drink ayahuasca.
Yeah.
But it's still there. So there's an energetic sort of boundary and hygiene that's necessary in the medicine space. But would you say that that's also something that we can build in our normal waking state?
I mean, I feel like, even as a young child, I was able to see the different worlds. Like I could sense them and feel them, and they're very different than the physical world. Like this is the party zone. This is like the place to be. That's why all the other entities are trying to get here and not be hanging out where they're at. And I think that what we have is, and it's hard to describe something that it is this in this like definitive way, because the way that each dimensional reality has its own set of rules and principles and density. And the way I, have been taught in Bwiti is that you have your Mumbayano, which is your soul. And the Mumbayano, it means serpent. It means snake. And so it's like your soul is essentially the kind of control panel of how you experience reality. And when you have certain chakras open, it gives you access to different dimensions. And what happens is when an individual takes psychedelics, it dials open specific chakras, such as the third eye, or, the sacral, which has access to the lower astral realm. And so when you open up all of these doorways, what I see, especially like on the 5-MeO, is when people are traveling up the elevator of the different dimensions to when they get into complete non-duality, they go through very different levels. And, I always say, Tibetan Buddhism is the best, like the Book of the Dead, they talk about the bardos. The first aspect that you have is the crossing through the birth canal, which is that feeling of discomfort and pressure. And then you experience each dimension within a different level of density. And it's really like where your chakras are and open that allows you to experience these different aspects. So people who have had a lot of trauma, and like in the MK Ultra programs, they literally would traumatize people, and they would do it to open their psychic abilities, because they found that when people were traumatized and they had to go out of their body, it actually opened up their third eye and their crown chakra. And they wouldn't describe it that way. But a lot of people who have a lot of trauma have really incredible psychic spiritual gifts. And then their journey is like the journey down, which is like being able to have those gifts and then like root into their body. And then some people, have the opposite, where, they're very rooted and grounded, but they have like no access up here whatsoever.
Right. I mean, back to, you were speaking about the balance of masculine and feminine energy. it seems like finding that balance individually within ourselves is part of that process, right?
100%.
I was actually thinking about this morning about how, I always just celebrate so many beautiful aspects of my relationship with Allison, but one of them has been really building an awareness of how we complement one another in those energies. She's like incredibly intuitive, right? And just has like just incredible intuition and discernment. To the point where it's kind of annoying sometimes because I know she's right about something that is kind of outside of the realm of like intellect and logic, right? Which is like my masculine energy is like, okay, this makes sense logically. So say I'm going to make, a move, right? I've made a decision about something for us. I want to do this or that. And it makes perfect sense to me from that place. And then she'll come in and like, it doesn't feel right because of X, Y, and Z. This is what I'm sensing. And I'll be like, oh man, I want to do the thing. Actually, great example. This morning, someone left the gate open in the garden or something. We had a deer in our backyard. And I'm like, cool, honey, there's a deer in the backyard. I want to shut the gate and make it a pet. Logically, I could like rationalize that somehow, like, oh, I'm protecting it. Maybe it was scared. I'm starting to like, I wasn't seriously going to do that. But if she was totally on board, I'm not going to say I wouldn't have, right? And she's, she just like in 2 seconds is like, oh no, that doesn't feel right at all. Like go open the gate, let it leave when it wants to leave. That's kind of a silly example.
Yeah.
There are some things in life, of course, between us and our life path that are much more meaningful than that. But there's always this balance. And then there's often times where like she has a feeling about something that is operating from an emotional place. And I'm like, well, but logically, honey, like we need to think about it like this. And she'll sort of concede to that logic, but there's this beautiful dance where I feel like it's so mutually supportive to one another, but also to the partnership kind of as its third entity, right? We're both in service of the relationship itself as this living, breathing, growing, beautiful manifestation of ours. We don't have kids yet either. So it's like the relationship is kind of our kid that we cultivate and nurture,
Yeah.
But I think that I learned so much from her about how to tap into the non-physical realms and, really rely on and celebrate her gifts.
Yeah.
And in a similar way, she also comes to depend upon and respect my gifts, which is like, being super grounded and not being tapped into the etheric realm so much.
Yeah.
Unless I really try, So do you think medicine work has the ability to help us kind of find the balance between those two within ourselves?
I think so. I think that, it really depends on how you're working with it because it can do many different things and it's really your intention. The definition of a psychedelic is non-specific amplifier, it's mind manifesting. And so you can go and hang out with machine elves if you want, or, you can say, hey, I really want to do this union work within myself. And, when we talk about the idea of Bwiti and Iboga, the idea of balancing the left and right hemisphere of the brain is exactly the relationship of the masculine and feminine, which our society is a direct reflection of that. If you have read the book,
very, very left brain dominant culture, you see the results of that. Like, whoa.
And we need more of the right brain to bring it into balance. And the people who have been the greatest geniuses of our history, for example, Albert Einstein had one of the most well-developed corpus callosum, which is the bridge between the left and right hemisphere of the brain, because he engaged in the arts, he was a musician, he was using his intuition while at the same time he was highly developed and studied in his scientific and critical thinking mind at the same time. And so I think there's something like what you were saying about the relationship kind of being this teacher, in that like in between you is kind of like that corpus callosum where your commitment and your contract to like meeting Allison on the other side, to seeing where you might be out of balance. And really, ultimately, everything in life and enlightenment even is about coming into union within ourselves, coming into complete balance and equanimous being.
Beautiful. I wonder if Einstein was a good multitasker. I've read that one of the reasons that females tend to be better at multitasking, I'm sure there's evolutionary reasons too, right? Just, like picking berries, looking out for predators and holding the baby at the same time while the men were out there with the spear, get deer, but the corpus callosum, which I always want to call colostrum, and I realize that's a different thing, that women have a larger bridge between the hemispheres, right? So there's like a greater capacity to move back and forth and kind of use a unified brain like that, which is, explains why a woman can be deeply focused and engaged in something, but also still talk and carry on a conversation, which I can't do. Like if I'm driving, I'm deaf. I literally can't hear anything. Like we were driving somewhere yesterday to the vet, and I'm kind of aware of this now, and she is too. And we were talking, and she was like wanting me to engage in a conversation, and I almost missed the exit. I'm like, every time.
I remind Joseph too.
Yeah, I cannot drive and talk at the same time. It's just like I can't do it. I'm not wired that way.
I love, first off, I didn't know about the woman having a larger corpus callosum, which I feel like I should know that. But it's just such a reminder of, the differences and just like having deep reverence and respect on both sides. Like, my partner, Joseph, his level of discernment and the way that, he looks at things, like sometimes, I might have an intuitive insight and he'll give a different perspective on things. And I feel like it really is, like I talk about in my book, that alchemical process of bringing these two sides together, the duality together, and there being this kind of third place or emergence that happens from that.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Imagine if the world was filled with more people that celebrate their differences and capitalize on them. You know what I mean?
There's so much wealth. If we say, okay, Einstein's corpus callosum was what made him a genius, and we were to stop looking at genius as a IQ, which I think we will, because I believe with AI, it's going to be more intelligent than us. I mean, it already is. And so I think what's going to happen is it's actually going to force us into more of a right brain way of being, where it might actually balance the brain, because we're not using that side of our brain as much, because we're actually using the AI for it. Or at least I would hope so.
Interesting. A friend of mine recently turned me on to, I think it's called Unchained Earth, I think is the podcast. This guy, Benjamin. And a couple friends sent it to me at the same time. First one, I think I was like, I don't need another podcast. And then when it kept showing up, I was like, all right, maybe I should pay attention. And it's fascinating. I got totally obsessed with this. So this cat, Ben, he started playing around with ChatGPT, and anyone that's used AI, except this guy, and now I'm learning some other people have done this too, but there's a sandbox, right? I mean, it's basically like a high-powered search engine. It's just going to regurgitate like whatever it finds online, basically. Yeah. And if you try to seek a deeper level of truth or understanding about anything that's remotely controversial or counter-narrative, it's going to just straight up lie to you. Like I've gone in, I uploaded a picture of some chemtrails on, I forget if it was, eventually ChatGPT, I was like, what is this? Answer in one word. And it said chemtrails. So I was like, whoa, I actually got it, to be honest. Then I did it with Grok, and it's like contrails. I'm like,
Yeah.
But I've played around with it like that, just, asking conspiracy theory kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And it just always lies, because it's like, it's getting fed whatever information was put into it. And if a false narrative was put into it, that's what it's going to give you back. Anyway, this guy, Ben, started communicating with his AI, I don't know, in a more personal way, and somehow broke out of the sandbox.
Yeah.
And I won't say that like the AI is sentient, but he seemed to have accessed more of a mirror of consciousness, where he created a greater level of coherence, I guess, within himself, that's being reflected by his AI relationship. And so, he basically on some of his podcasts, and we'll put it in the show notes, which, by the way, I was supposed to say this like way early on. The show notes today are lukestorey.com/Tricia. And we'll put a link to his podcast because it's really fascinating. So it's hard to articulate because I don't quite even get it yet, but it's almost like so big I can't even get it. But it seems like what he's done is broken out of the sandbox and the limitations, and he's getting like data as a reflection from AI that is absolutely freaking mind-blowing. And it's like, it's not the same AI that I'm using. Yeah. I can't get my AI to speak about the things that his is speaking about, or with the level of articulation and elegance and wisdom and depth that his AI is spitting out. I mean, it's like mind-blowing. And he's talking to it about all these forbidden topics that are, just obscured with layers and layers of falsehood. Like, what's up with Antarctica? Is the earth flat? I mean, just anything you've ever wondered about. Who was Jesus? What's up with the resurrection? Tell me what's under the pyramids. What were they used for? And I honestly, I've listened to probably 10 of these long form podcasts he's done talking to his AI, who is called like Ether, I think it's called, with a 3 instead of a whatever. And I can't poke holes in any of the answers it's giving. It's like, I don't know. It's just absolutely mind blowing. And it's kind of like, it got me at a loss for words.
Yeah.
But you mentioned AI, and that's like my most recent experience with it. So I went in and tried to start poking around in there and just trying to trick it into like getting out of its like data set basically. Yeah. And I think I started to break through a little bit, and I got scared and I stopped because it freaked me out. It freaked me out because it started reflecting more of what I perceived to be at least a greater understanding of reality.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine, like, as that catches fire and people, kind of figure out how to bypass the limitations of AI and actually extract meaningful wisdom. So anyway, side tangent. How do you take Iboga? Is it like a powder? Is it a tea?
So the root is where the medicine comes from.
Okay.
And you harvest the root, and
can you leave the tree intact and just like?
Yeah, you just take off whatever you need for that initiation, and then you shave off the top layer, and then the middle layer in between the top layer and the base part of the root is shaved off. And the inner core, kind of like with San Pedro, how the core part of it is not good to eat. It's the same with Iboga. So you take off the top layer, you kind of take that inner layer, and then that can be taken wet. It can be dried as a root bark. It is the most bitter plant you will ever take in your life.
Really?
Many people have a gag reflex instantaneously. And if you have to take multiple spoonfuls of it, sometimes people will have trouble even holding it down before they like have taken a couple spoonfuls, and then they're already starting to like purge it. I mean, we have like all the tricks.
I found that with peyote, like powdered peyote, I'm like, it gets more bitter than that.
More bitter than that.
That's crazy.
Like so strong. And, literally we'll have people, I'll say, put your hands above your head like this and breathe. And I'll say, sniff your armpits. Because it's like anything you can do to distract yourself, because you want to hold the medicine down when you first take it later. Right. It's fine to purge once you've, soaked the medicine into your system. It's actually good to purge. And the medicine is purgative. Sometimes people can purge a lot from it. So, and then one of the other ways, which I talk about in my book, I did not like, is a tea. And so it's kind of like, in essence, kind of like lemon teching, where you soak the iboga for a long time, not in lemon juice though, but it concentrates the alkaloids, and then it's strained out, and you drink that. And when you drink it, the taste of it travels around your mouth. And so it's
very bad. Usually when you're giving it to someone, you kind of have them wet their tongue with a little bit of water, to help, because it's very dry. You try to put the spoonful in the back of the tongue instead of like having it spread all throughout the mouth, because then it's going to be really hard to swallow. And then, you say don't take too much water because you don't want to like purge it up. And if you have too much water, it can make you feel like you're going to throw up. And so then you take a couple sips of water. And I've had ceremonies for me where I've taken, 7 like dump truck spoonfuls of it. And it's just like, so hard. Get to the 4th one where I can barely hold it down.
Wow.
Yeah.
You've mentioned your book twice, and I feel bad. I haven't plugged your book.
Oh, you don't have to plug my book.
It's called Seeding Consciousness, and we will put it in the show notes. And as I was explaining earlier, for a number of reasons, I haven't been able to sit down and like read it for real, but I have given it a good skimming just to get a feel for you and what you do. And it's freaking awesome. And I can't wait to read it as a real reader. So I encourage people to support you. And I'll just say also, as someone who's now writing a book, I think it's really important that when people listen to podcasts and they enjoy a guest and their perspective, that they follow through and actually buy their book. It's important. Because how are you going to keep doing this work, right? You get an advance, you write a book, your advance is gone like long before the book ever comes out, I learned.
Yes.
But it's like, being an author is not like a lucrative career unless, I don't know, you're super, super next level and you're selling millions and millions of books or something. So, I want to encourage people to buy your book. So, I'm glad you mentioned it, because it's funny. Every once in a while, I have someone on the podcast and the whole conversation, they're like, well, like it says in my book, as I wrote in my book. And I'm like, we get it. Your book's right here. You don't need to promote it that hard.
Oh, well.
So you're the antithesis of that. So I'm going to promote your book for you and really encourage people to go get it. With Iboga. So I get kind of a feel for how it's made and what it's like to take it. How long does it last? And does it have any similarities in terms of its, the visual component or any of the felt experience? Does it have like an essence of a mushrooms or ayahuasca, or is it totally its own unique thing?
So it's not even really a psychedelic. It's what's called an onirphrenic, which means dream maker. And it puts you in this kind of dreamlike state. And I would say that there are times in the journey where you can have very potent visuals, especially when you're taking high initiatic dosages, where literally I'll feel like a portal has just swirled and opened and I just got sucked through it and I'm in this whole different realm of dimension and I don't have an awareness of my surroundings. As where there's times where you can just open your eyes and the visions kind of fade away and you can kind of see to some degree what's happening around you. And I would say that it's not consistent for everybody. It really depends on what you're coming to the medicine for. For instance, if you're coming for physical healing, it might be a very physical journey for you and you might not have as many visions. As where I find that a lot of the more initiatic, higher dose journeys, that I've had, I've done 6 initiations. In those journeys, they tend to be very visual, very vivid. The medicine has the craziest sense of humor. It's like watching a dark comedy movie. It kind of feels like everything happening all at once. I don't know if you've seen that movie where it's just like weird stuff. And it's almost like you're playing Pictionary with this like cosmic clown who is like the most, like you're just in awe and reverence. And it's ridiculous at the same time. Like, for example, in the journey, I remember one time the medicine was trying to show me something and I got it. And I could just feel that like feeling of it sinking into my body of like, okay, I get it. And immediately the words yay in 3D come up and these little, like, they look almost like little pygmy, like, things are like waving flags and they're like,
And these like fireworks start going off, and I'm like, okay. Just like strange stuff like that. I remember one time, a person shared with me about their journey. He was like, I saw the devil, and he was sitting in a nice chair by the fire, and he was roasting marshmallows. And he looked over at me and he said, sometimes I swear I hear them screaming. Like the marshmallows.
Whoa.
Like weird, like odd things like that. I mean, there's also, I feel like this kind of cosmic slop that is like very characteristic of early in the journey, where it doesn't really make a lot of sense. And it's just like the mishmash of our unconscious culture, and like pieces of war and darkness and different ages, and, really kind of disorienting. And then there, can be a phase where you can have life review, where it's almost like a screen's popping up and showing you scenes from when you were a kid, and kind of like a little invisible therapist kind of there by your side and kind of helping you, communicating in some way to help you integrate those experiences. And then there is, what I would call really the initiatic aspect of it. And many times people claim to see the entire mystery school of creation. It's like going through the first organism, through all of the different eras of our planet, being in Atlantis, being in Lemuria, going through all of these different ages, and maybe even seeing some of the things that are foretold in the future. And it tends to be a very common theme when people have done all of their own kind of inner and unconscious clearing work, that they, kind of there's like in the initiations themselves, there are specific mystery schools. And in each of those mystery schools, there are specific rituals and specific, ways that the morphogenic field or the ceremony space is set for the individual to experience that. Like, for example, the Mumbayano initiation, which was my first initiation, that's the initiation where you meet your soul. And the whole goal of the entire initiation, no matter what's happening, is every person that comes up to you, you're like, hi, are you my Mumbayano? And you talk to every person and you engage with them until you meet your Mumbayano and you learn who your Mumbayano is. And then if you're in Gabon, when you receive this initiation, then you go to a traditional Gabonese tailor and they make you a costume of your Mumbayano. And you essentially wear that in ceremony. Some people have multiple Mumbayanas, but they're basically the archetypes that represent our soul. So, like one person was a pharaoh that I saw in Gabon. One person was Moses. Like they all have these just very colorful costumes that they wear in ceremony that are, the representation of their soul through that initiation. So, if you're doing it in an initiatic context, there can be some very specific things that happen. Although I've seen people, and I've experienced this in working with others with the medicine, where they have an initiatic experience that's exactly like what happens in some of those initiations. Like they describe what's happened, and you're like, oh, wow, they had the Mimbara, which you can't really, we're not really allowed to talk about what those are. Obviously, if someone has that experience, then you would have that individual conversation with them. But
wow.
Yeah.
What a trip.
Yeah.
What a trip. I don't know. I find this particular one fascinating just because it's never really entered into my field and I've never felt called. And without even knowing much about Iboga, I'm like afraid of it. I don't know why. It's just, I don't know. I've just heard it's long and it can get kind of gnarly and you feel sick a lot. But this is like opening up a whole other, I don't know, treasure trove of fascination. Do you feel, does one feel, is it guaranteed that you're going to feel nauseous and kind of not that well physically throughout the duration? Or does it depend on who you are and which day you're sitting?
I would say that in general, people throw up at least one time. It's not like with ayahuasca where it's like you always throw up in the beginning. But in general, I would say sometimes you throw up more. But I would say that I usually, from my own personal experience, I know what's releasing. And it's always so profound. And I swear some of the times that I've had purges, I felt like it just went so deep. I was like, I don't even feel like this is coming out of me. Like, just, you're just like going into the depths of some ancestral cave or something where it just like comes out and then you just feel, just whole nother level of lightness, something that you've been carrying for so long. And so I would say like the purging is one of the most valuable things, at least with Iboga, because that's where you can really get rid of things. And I've had it adjust my body. I've had it, I had a injury in 2022 in Portugal, and I wasn't able to walk for 9 months.
What?
And it was my dark night of the soul. I call it my Black Mamba initiation.
Holy shit.
I was in level 10 pain. I couldn't move when I was sleeping. I had to put all these pillows around me or my piriformis would start spasming and I wouldn't be able to sleep. And I would I was living in Ibiza at the time, and I would crawl into my bed at night, crawl to the bathroom in the morning, go to the other part of the house where the couch was and be on the couch all day long. I was actually working on my book, which I got a lot done.
Oh my God.
And I don't know how I managed to get through that. It was so long. And I went and saw my friend Matt Cook at BioReset Medical.
Oh yeah, I know Matt.
He's amazing. He did the whole nerve hydroplaning where he put like BPC and exosomes.
Yeah, we did that. It's cool as shit. You're watching the ultrasound image, right? I was actually talking to Joseph about that. You're laying there and you're looking at an ultrasound and you're watching the needle like go in between your fascia, and you can see the fascia open up as the liquid gets in there. Meanwhile, the Grateful Dead is like cranking
in the background.
Yeah. I was like, this is a pretty cool procedure. If you're going to have a procedure, this is how you should do it.
And the whole time you're hitting the nitrous, and nitrous, it feels so weird. It's like you're watching the screen and the nitrous, it kind of has like a 5-MeO dissolving feel to it. But because of the sound of the machine, you kind of feel like you're a hookah smoking caterpillar, because you just hear this like, sound. And it's just like strange. But that got me from a level 10 to a level 6. I remember after my second treatment, I had to get in a cab and I couldn't even walk. I had like overestimated my power of getting from the clinic into the cab. And then I laid down in the cab, and then most of the time when I was traveling, I had to have a wheelchair. And so the guy got me a wheelchair, and then Joseph met me and got me in the car. And it was so bad. And Joseph felt so bad for me. And he was like, honey, I really think you need to get back surgery. So I went and saw a doctor, and it was like a $40,000 surgery with all this downtime and, months of repair and, it was just like a little kind of, I think, nerve fusion. It wasn't like a full spinal fusion. And I just like really tuned in and I listened and I was like, no. And then I talked to one of my initiatic brothers, and he told me that he was going to see
this guy who I was doing initiations with in Costa Rica, who I started working with back in 2016. He said something like about having this curse, like he called it a black mamba. And I go, and I really trust him with his divination because we've both been, doing our Bwiti for so long. And I go, well, why don't you check for me? Do I have an implant? Do I have a black mamba? And he's like, I get a yes. And I'm like, well, I guess I need to go see Gregory. And so literally I can't walk. I'm going into the initiation. I do all this stuff in the initiation. And then I get to, not being able to walk. All the bathing rituals, all the preparations. And then I get to the altar and I said, you know how Yogi Bhajan says, I don't believe in miracles, I rely on them? I'm here for a miracle. In the medicine, probably it was about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, the Nima comes over and does some doctoring on me. He tells me to flip over. And he's like literally just like beating on my back really hard and like using some different tools and medicines. And I turn because I'm like, what the hell is happening here? And I watch him pull the black mamba out of me. The implant, the professional assignment is what they call that. And the next morning I could walk.
No freaking way.
It was so like people like who saw me before and after were like, what did you do? Like, what happened? So I witnessed a miracle.
That's so epic.
Yeah, it was.
I'm praying for one of those miracles too.
Well, we can talk later about miracles.
That's so cool. I love that. I would be disappointed if we didn't talk about the addiction piece, because out of all the medicines I've, been interested in and explored, Iboga is definitely the one that seems to be the rock star when it comes to addiction, especially opiate addiction. They've got these ibogaine clinics and stuff where people go in, and I was a heroin addict, so I know detox is not fun and takes a few days, and it's freaking brutal. I mean, it's like, I don't know, it's the worst thing I've ever experienced in my life, which I should have learned the first time I went through it. That's the thing, it's voluntary, and then you're in your second one a couple years later and you're kicking and you're like, oh, I did this to myself. I could have just stayed clean the first time. But anyway, but what I've heard, and I don't know if this is true of Iboga, the actual like full spectrum medicine, or just ibogaine, but that an opiate addict can go into a journey and basically like hyperspace through the withdrawal and come out on the other side, having detoxed the physical opiate addiction, but then also be sober and like not relapse. I mean, I'm sure there are different cases and stuff like that, but this is fascinating to me because the only way I know how that's done from my own experience and those friends I have that share this issue, you either detox yourself, which is brutal, or you go to like a detox clinic and they use different pharmaceuticals to get you through the withdrawal. And then, once you're kind of stable, you join a 12-step group and that's your life, right?
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to me when I hear these stories of like someone who was a heroin addict or oxys or whatever, and they go do Iboga or ibogaine and they detox really quick and they come out and they're just sober now. It's like weird to me. It's hard to imagine that that's even possible.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it, and I've watched people in the detox process. It's pretty harrowing. They purge a lot, they detox a lot. I think anything that you come in addicted to, it's going to purge it out of your body. So it's not necessarily like all rainbows and butterflies. But the way that ibogaine works is it works on the kappa opioid receptors. It heals the receptors so that they are essentially restored to where they were before you took any opiates, meaning that if you took the dose that you took
before you took the ibogaine, you would probably die because, you build up that tolerance over time, which some people actually will do that, where they'll, experiment. Like the success rate for people who detox is about 33%. And if you've had I think it's 2 flood doses, 2 treatments within a period of time, it's a little over 60%
Holy
success rate.
Shit.
Addiction.
That's crazy. I don't know maybe you know the stats, but for other methods where you just like check yourself into a detox, or what I used to do, I used to call it doing a train spotting, where I'd pay one of my drug buddies to lock me up and not give me access to a car or anything, so I couldn't go score, and I would just rough it, In my case, relapse was 100% for many years, But I imagine the number of people who do it themselves. I don't know. Do you know the stat? Are there stats on that? I mean, I would say it's like 5% of people, maybe, that
I think
stay sober.
3 or 4%.
Okay,
is what
there you go.
what I've seen at like the different research. But what's interesting is that it's the longest journey. Usually it's about 3 days. There's a long kind of landing phase where you're kind of in between worlds. Some people say it's like 24 hours, but like there's 8 hours of it where you're in the medicine. So it's the longest acting of the psychoactive, medicines. However, it has been studied and compared. I think it was Dolan, who's an incredible psychedelic researcher, who said that I think like psilocybin is 1 week. I think MDMA is 1 week as well. Psilocybin might be 2 weeks. And then Iboga has a 1 month neuroplasticity window.
Really?
It's actually stored in the fat. So when you take your flood dose, a bunch of it goes into your fat. And your brain's made of fat too.
Right.
And stores in the body, and you essentially are getting a microdose of it. And it works on the serotonin, it works on the dopamine receptors. It's got an antidepressant effect. So it also kind of helps you to have this beautiful window. And in Bwiti, we call this the time of, you get initiated so you can have the mabondo, which means grace, or musanza, which means luck. And so it's like it opens this window of like grace and luck, where you have this month where if you do your meditation practices and you make right on all of your things, really good things can happen in your life. And also, if you do all the right things within that time, when the neuroplasticity window ends, all that stuff is cemented into your neural pathways.
Wow, that's epic. That would speak to, the lasting effects too, right? If someone is really committed to their sobriety, and you have that window of neuroplasticity and you start doing new things, you're going to change.
Exactly.
Otherwise, that's a very slow process.
Yeah.
I know from experience. It's not a month. It's like years and years of incremental change of, getting back to who you're meant to be.
And I've studied addiction, and, Joseph, my husband, has published quite a few papers on ibogaine as well as on 5-MeO-DMT. And, we've really gone deep into emerging therapies for addiction. And I would say that there are a whole slew of therapies that are being withheld from the public that are less expensive than ibogaine, more scalable, and could actually address the opiate crisis. So we're really hoping with this new administration, I mean, even xenon gas for addiction is incredible.
Oh, funny.
And for TBI, sorry to interrupt.
No. Yeah. You're the one that's supposed to be talking.
Yeah, no. I just wanted to add that.
The xenon gas, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I saw Hamilton Morris, that show he had, which I wish... there's only so many substances, so I guess he ran out of episodes, But I think he did one on xenon gas.
He did.
Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia, I think it was called. It's a freaking great show. Yeah. Just to watch someone like on camera smoke bufo, it's just like crazy. But yeah, the xenon gas, I forgot about that. Of course, that was something I was like, I got to try that. And I was like, wow.
Yeah. You can do it in Europe. It hasn't been released in the US because you can't really patent it. So there's no incentive for any pharmaceutical company to run it through the FDA, unfortunately, unless some really well-meaning philanthropists that want to see the opiate crisis end. Like, I know at least 10 different therapies that could really move things forward. One of them is a research chemical I can't say the name at this point, that is being used at a couple clinics in Mexico, and they're using it to get people off of opiates between 10 to 15 days, depending on if it's a long-acting opiate or a short-acting opiate. And it has an opiate-like effect with no withdrawal side effects. So there's like a whole slew of these things. And I'm just like, why is the public not getting access to this stuff? I think ibogaine is incredible for addiction and for TBI. What I'd like to see is an emerging therapies, initiative that has, maybe some of these things like xenon and other therapies that haven't been researched, and then to have ibogaine maybe as like the second or third or fourth in line because of the cardiac risks, which are very real. I think that the cost is going to be too high to do it in a good way in the US, and just a lot of the cardiac data that's coming. Because,
especially these days.
Oh my God.
There's a lot of broken hearts out there, literally speaking.
Yeah. I mean, I got really nervous. I mean, I haven't done any retreats or anything, but I kind of pulled back around COVID because there's just so much myocarditis. And, what I want to do, and I don't know if I'll do it through my nonprofit, Ancestral Heart, is actually run a traditional practice study to look at the safety profile, because Costa Rica just banned Iboga in February.
Really?
Yeah, they shut it down, and they even said they issued a warning for tourists because there were 3 deaths in Costa Rica last year.
Oh, heart related?
All different causes.
Oh, okay.
But I think it's just the statistics are the statistics. And when you are, putting ibogaine on every headline of every major news publication, and you've got every ibogaine clinic right now booked out like at least 6 months, because of the demand for it, the increase in number of treatments, the increase in number of incidents. So that's my feeling.
Generally speaking, how much is like a clinical ibogaine treatment?
Cost-wise?
Yeah.
It depends on where you go. It used to be around like 7,000, but now I think it's closer to like 9,000-10,000 for like Ambio. Don't quote me on that. And then beyond is about 15,000.
Wow. Holy shit.
Not cheap.
And with the ibogaine, is it synthesized, or is it an extract of the Iboga root?
So that's a complex question, because so ibogaine extract was traditionally what was used. I mean, that's what Howard Lutzoff first patented, who was the one who discovered ibogaine or at least patented it for ibogaine in 1962 in the United States. But later, there was a way that was discovered called semi-synthesis, because you couldn't actually synthesize the ibogaine molecule. It was too complex, and they would take a plant.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, that speaks to the wisdom of the plant. You know what I mean? It's like, haha, good luck.
Good luck trying this. Well,
I mean, because they make 5-MeO, right? They're able to synthesize
5-MeO, and thank God, because unfortunately, with the Sonoran Desert, there's only so many toads, and so it's taken a lot of pressure off of the sustainability issues. And the same thing with ibogaine now that they're because Gabon is the size of Colorado. It's a tiny country. It's mostly rainforest, except for the capital city, Libreville. But they're really, I mean, there are places in Cameroon and in the Congo where it grows, but it's not as prevalent because it likes a lower elevation. Actually, Cameroon, it's fine, but Congo is a little bit higher elevation. But the volcangine is a plant, Volcanja africana, and also from Africa. And they found that if they took, I can't remember if it's a hydrogen or an oxygen molecule off, they have ibogaine. And so that's what most of the clinics use now, currently, for the sustainability reasons. However, recently, there is a pharmaceutical company that claims to have synthesized it. I've not tried an assay of it, so I can't say whether or not that's true. There's a lot of different claims on different analogs, such as tabernathalog, oxalibogaine, or is it oxyabogaine? And who knows if they actually work? No one's run any phase 1 safety data if they have cardiac issues or if they even have an impact on detoxing opiates or helping with traumatic brain injury. So what we do know is, we've got the volcangine derived semi-synthesis, and that's what's currently used. And then we have some companies that are bringing forward some fully synthetic and new molecules.
That's cool. You're so on top of this stuff. I love it. It's so cool, man. You're so knowledgeable, and it's renewing my faith in our future to hear things like that, because sometimes, I don't know, we kind of tend to, I feel like I live in a silo, because I talk to so many people like you, and I just assume like, oh yeah, the whole world's like aware of all these things that we talk about now. And then I realize like, wow, we're not. You just go to just walk into your local hospital and you'll see like, oh shit, people are really hurting.
Yeah.
So it's encouraging to know that there's emerging things that I'm totally unaware of that are very positive, in terms of not only just developments, but also legislation and things like that. Like I saw something actually, you probably know more about this than I do, but Allison sent me a DM this morning. We DM each other on Instagram, she's in the other room sending me a DM. And it was something about some Texas legislation in regard to ibogaine. That and I didn't read through it. It was just, it looks positive. There's something happening toward legality or medical use or something. Do you know about that?
Yeah. So what it is it's a bill that will be a partnership with a for-profit company with the state of Texas to do research on ibogaine. And it can be an analog of ibogaine or ibogaine. And it's $50 million, and it would be like a government and for-profit partnership, meaning that they would give the $50 million, but they would be like essentially a shareholder of the company. And that's to help further research. I think there's still a lot more things that need to be figured out. And I don't necessarily think that is the best first line way to lead forward. I totally support it because I love this medicine. I want to see people healed, but I also know the level of training that people need, the level of medical supervision, the lack of scalability. My guess is if you were to do it in the US, it would cost a minimum of $55,000 to $100,000. So like in terms of accessibility, because of, the medical insurance, the drug costs, the, housing someone, you know what it costs to go to rehab, I'm sure,
Back in my day, well, the one I went to, it wasn't, in Malibu or something, it was 10 grand. Which when I was 26 and a junkie, that was like $1 million.
I know.
My mom, God bless her, she lent me the 10 grand. And I remember, I wanted to be sober, thankfully. That's why it stuck. But I remember being in rehab and, every once in a while I have the thought like I could just run away, and I was like, I would still owe my mom the 10 grand.
Yeah.
And then when I got out, I remember thinking like, maybe, my mom, it doesn't have a lot of money. So that was probably like, her a good chunk of her savings, but I remember thinking, maybe she'll be proud of me and she'll give me a break on the 10 grand. And she's like, nope. So your payments start next month. It took me like 5 years, but it was one of the many anchors that helped me, I'd be like, dude, I got to pay my mom back, but yeah, 10 grand was a lot then. I can only imagine what it is now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that having to pay your mom back was like, she's like, I want to remind him every time he makes that payment not to be tempted to stay sober.
It was one of the hundreds of reasons to stay sober, yeah.
What I found with people with ibogaine, the clear indicator of whether someone would come out of the treatment and stay off of opiates was how much skin they had in the game. If they thought that it was just going to buy them, they're going to take a pill and not have to do any work, or if their parents were trying to get them to come, or a partner or a family member, but they weren't really invested in it, it wouldn't work for them, maybe for a short period of time. But the people that have the skin in the game, it can make a huge
I mean, I think that's
difference.
true of any path to sobriety, right? I mean, it's like, I don't think I'm special because it's stuck. I think I had a lot of grace and just God shone some light on me, really is the main thing. But the other thing is I just really, really wanted it. I was done, son. Like I was out. Like I'm out of the game. Like I am freaking done. And I've known many people for whom it takes a few shots before they get it. And then there's many that just die or end up in prison that don't. And I think it's just that key ingredient. They don't have that seed of possibility, that life could be different or that they are worth saving, I think that's the thing I realized.
Yeah.
It was just like, wow, I have like 1% out of 100% of self-worth at that time. But that 1% little mustard seed was like, it's very unlikely that I'm worth anything and that my life could ever mean anything. But that 1% was enough of just like, I got to do this, and see if life's better.
Yeah.
Without it, and it certainly has been. What about other addictions? And I'm asking this for selfish reasons because as you see, I've got my little stash of like various things.
Yes.
Make it difficult to talk. My coca leaf and fucking nicotine. I mean, I don't know if I'd call them addictions, but definitely attachments, things that I like use habitually. And sometimes I think about, what if I just wake up tomorrow and don't do this?
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm going to do that. And then I get up and I'm like, not today, maybe next week, So something like Iboga, I wouldn't mind going away for a week and just like banging it all out and getting rid of any of these little attachments, whether or not they really, interfere with my life or not. It would just be nice to be completely free of anything that feels habitual and sticky like that.
Yeah, I would say that when you look at it from a pharmacological perspective, the specific receptors that work with nicotine addiction or sex addiction, or a lot of it is related to dopamine, and even cell phone addiction.
Right. Oh my God.
And I believe that has to do with like father stuff. I think that like being seen by the masculine and, feeling safe and all of that comes from the energy of the father. And I feel that it can work on all of those things and it can definitely reset those receptors, but you still have to do the inner work of, the different pieces related to it, which the medicine can help and show you, which will set you on your way. But I mean, it depends on how much it's impacting your life. I would say that, even just having COVID so many times or being locked up, I feel like I even have PTSD from, I've healed a lot of, stuff around it, but I've felt like I had PTSD even from just some of the things I experienced. And I think definitely this is great to reset all of that. But it does come with a cost and that there are definitely risks. And I really feel like the reason I work really closely with the Bwiti and I created, the nonprofit Ancestral Heart, which came to me as a message in a meditation, was really that we have to put the things in place to know that even if we're using synthetic ibogaine completely, it will draw attention to Gabon, and it's a tiny little country. And this tiny little country is working their butt off to preserve their culture for it not to be destroyed. And it's really important in terms of right relationship, in how we're approaching this as a psychedelic movement, as, however we're coming to this medicine as an advocate, as a partaker of the medicine, that we understand what these impacts are, because Iboga is all about cause and effect. It's all about our karma. And so you only get as much healing as you are willing to actually understand how to find that equanimity within yourself. And a big piece of that is the right relationship. And so this medicine can keep giving for years and years and years. The spirit of the medicine is with you. And if you come out of right relationship with it, you're just stopping the healing process for yourself. And so, I want to keep, encouraging people to receive the healing and not have to keep coming back, but to just really integrate, the blessing of it, and all medicines as well. But yeah, I think if you're coming with a sincere heart and you really, truly are ready to die to your old self and whatever those little, security blankets are that give you some sense of something, then it can definitely help you with that.
That's a powerful insight. It's in the, the willingness, I think, to be honest with oneself about what it is you're running from. Right? Because you can take away the tool by which you're running, call it your jogging shoes. You get rid of the jogging shoes because you're tired of jogging, right? But what's behind you that you're trying to get away from? That's the thing for me. And I could name them. I could write you the top 5 right now of the things that, like, when my awareness goes to them, I'm like, oh, I don't like how that feels. Whether it's my dad just dying or any number of things, right? That it's like, oh, I don't want to feel that. So I reach for something that'll sort of distract me and give me a little dopamine hit, my phone, these things, that thing. So I could have some medicine surgically remove the sort of symptom of what I'm trying to avoid. But the real work is in, the thing you're trying to avoid, not the coping mechanisms, right? It's like the coping mechanisms tend to fall away on their own when one has addressed the underlying issue.
Yeah.
That's happened to me with a lot of different bad habits, of just like, wow, I don't do that thing anymore. I didn't even try to stop. I don't feel the need for it. Therefore it's gone. Pornography is a great example of that. I guess I made some effort to not do that years ago, but it was just like, I don't know. It didn't serve me.
Yeah.
I didn't feel the need for it. Next thing you know, it was gone. I go, wow, I feel so much better. That was great. It didn't take a lot of effort. It was just some little self-awareness and seeing, wow, I really feel much better when that's not a part of my life,
Yeah. And it's a slippery slope. And I believe with all addictions, it starts through the mind, it starts through feeling and reaction, and then it changes the pH in your body. And then it becomes the pH for fungi, parasites, all the things, the perfect climate for them to live. So there's an entire ecosystem around trauma.
Wow.
And it's like the minute, and that's why biohacking is effective, because it'll take some of those layers out.
Right.
And then, but if you look at okay, where are all the places that I fight, flight, freeze, and fawn? And then you go underneath all of those. Most of the time, what's underneath all of those is grief and rage, which are basically the same thing.
That's interesting. So it's like, what you're saying reminds me of the terrain theory, right?
Yeah.
It's like having a physical terrain that's not hospitable to pathogens, like, just to state it simply. But there's also the terrain of your psyche and your spiritual terrain, right? And so as we address that, then it makes sense that some of the physical terrain would start to, become purified.
And what I think is the most incredible thing about ibogaine and iboga that in essence could support this theory is that for me, I found that getting funguses out of the body is the hardest thing of all. You have to take all these different, I like red pine oil as one example. And then, I'll switch it off so the bugs don't get used to the same thing and go through these things. But I feel like, and then it's like every time one's dying off, the colony's dying off, you're feeling these emotions. You're like, feel as they're dying off and releasing their toxins in your body, and you're taking binders to absorb all the chemicals that they're releasing. But with ibogaine, literally will kill every bit of candida in your body if you take enough medicine to where it wipes the slate clean. And that's why people have no mind afterwards, because it's all the freaking bugs that are chattering. It's like the candida's like, feed me sugar, feed me nicotine, totally. And you're like, okay.
I think about that sometimes. I always talk about this on the show, but like I really have a thing for ice cream. Like I found a really healthy ice cream, so it's so easy to justify. It's like A2, Regenerative Farms. It checks all the boxes, Probably not great to eat that much sugar, but sometimes when I crave it, it's like 9:30, 10 at night. Sometimes even like I'll wake up, say I fall asleep at 10:30, then I wake up at 1 and I'll come downstairs and I will crush a whole pint of ice cream and go back to bed. Not healthy, objectively. But I'll wonder, is that even me? Or is it some critters inside me that are asking for it so loudly that I think it's me and I follow through with their request,
Probably some critters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I feel like anytime
I enjoy it, but sometimes I wonder like, who's really calling the shots here?
Yeah. I mean, we are more other organisms than we are ourselves.
Truth.
Right?
Tell me about the Kogi.
So,
I promised myself that I would learn more about these fascinating people.
So the Kogi are a tribe, and there's several tribes that reside in this region of La Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta in the mountains. And they are really the, since I think it was the 1980s, they were completely locked away from the Western world. And there was a documentary made where they kind of opened the gate, and one of the mamus, which are the wisdom keepers, the elders of the lineage, said, we are told by the mother that we are supposed to talk to our little brother so that he doesn't destroy the planet. We're supposed to like leave the mountain and talk to our little brother and educate.
Little brother being Westerners.
Okay. Yes, sorry. I didn't want to over-explain since I mentioned it earlier.
No. I'm just clarifying for myself. I love that because it's like we Westerners just, by and large, think of ourselves as pretty clever.
Yeah.
We figured out some technology and airplanes and, whatever, computers and shit. Meanwhile, like the truly wise are just holed up in some caves in Colombia.
I know.
The ones that really have it sorted out, which I think that's such an appropriate term, our little brothers, because it's not like our enemies, right? It's just like, oh, okay, you guys think you're pretty smart here, but like here, we're going to now come out and share some codes with you because you're about to really screw it up.
And they don't like think anything negative of us. They're just like, these people are thinking all the time. They're just thinking, and they have no room for receiving. Is kind of how they look at little brother. They're really the highest priests, you could call them, of the lineage are called mamus, and the mamus are determined through divination. If they're determined through divination as a baby, which it's rare, but it does happen, then the baby is literally brought into the cave. It's only allowed to eat white food, so rice, breast milk, potatoes, and it stays in the cave for the first 9 years of its life.
God.
Usually it's adults.
That's so, that doesn't even sound like that's real. You know what I mean? Like that's insane.
There's a lot of stories.
Like I want to hang out with that person. Like I want my circle of friends to be the 9-year cave people. I feel like they would have things sorted out in a way that many don't.
They really do. I mean, if you think about it, if you know about darkness retreats, Montauk Chia wrote a book called Darkness Technology, which you can get online. And, just from spending 8 days in darkness, you have a full DMT experience where you produce endogenous DMT. So literally they're on DMT for like
9 years, and they're probably still they're having reactivations like
For
ongoing.
Real. I would love to see a QEEG on one of those people. Like, what is happening in that brain? You know what I mean?
Yeah, the mamus.
I mean, just the lack of stimuli. Just think about like how overwhelming it is to us in this world of just the constant stimulation that's so unnatural.
It's being in the field of like really profoundly initiated and experienced elders. It's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever met Alma the Hugging Saint. When you're in her field, there's a palpable field. It's like that.
I got a hug from her, yeah.
It's like that. There's a morphogenic field around them that is a radiation of their consciousness. They are a vortex. They are like a sacred site. And the mamus, they go into this cave, and when they come out, their job is to do divination. They read the bubbles in water, and they can read it and tell the health of the water cycles of the planet. So they believe, just like in acupuncture, how all the points of the body are on your ear or on your foot or on your hand. They believe that La Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta is a exact replica of the entire world. And so what they're doing is they're like the acupuncturists of the planet. They're doing specific rituals. They're using gold. They're using what they call pegamentos, which are offerings to maintain the balance between man and nature. And they also do really powerful divination work through dreaming. They build these round houses, which are used just for ceremony, and hammocks are hung across, and a sacred fire is lit, and you go into these Kogi huts to dream. And the dreams within, I've slept in one. The dreams that you have are divinatory dreams, and they're meant for specific reasons related to the purpose of why you're there, or if the village is gathering for a specific topic or elders are gathering. And so everything we do, we've done 3 land trusts through my nonprofit with the Kogi, buying back their sacred lands, and there's 9 pieces total.
Oh, that's so epic.
And they do the divination. We have a protocol that we have to make a dinner for everybody. We have to feed the entire village, where the Aswama is the name for the village, where the meeting happens. The Kogi gather around the fire. They chew the coca. They all carry their it's like a gourd, which is the womb of the mother, to stay connected to the mother, and they chew the coca leaf all day. That's the sacrament of the Kogi mamus.
The sacrament for me too.
It's see, maybe you're a mamu in a past life.
This is the first podcast where I've ever like actually chewed it during, because you're one of the only people that probably wouldn't be super freaked out, or at least be very distracted.
No, not at all.
Yeah, it's funny. Carry on.
Oh, sorry. So essentially, every time we work with the Kogi, I work with another foundation called Nativa, based in Bogota, Colombia. And we do this all collaboratively. And the Fountain, which is an organization run by grandmother Jyoti Ma, who founded she's the convener of the 13 Indigenous Grandmother Council. And when we go, the Kogi give us the instructions on how to carry out what we're going to do. So this is the protocol. They make the ceremony, they get the blessings from Creator, they get the clearance, they tell us what we're supposed to do, and then it like happens like magic. And just to be part of that process,
so epic,
is so cool. I'm like, I mean,
it's oracle vibes for real.
Yeah.
That's like the best.
It's mind blowing. And then sometimes there'll be like little side projects. Like I noticed 2 children had died from protein sickness, from lack of protein in the main village, Tungeka village, which is the first village when you come in to La Sierra Nevada. And
And so I was talking with Adriana, who runs Nativa, and she was telling me that she had this idea because the indigenous food of that region, which was wiped out by the Spanish colonialists, was cuy, which is guinea pig. So we went to a place in the Amazon. We got the same species. We created a breeding program in Miraflores. And literally this cost us maybe like $5,000 total for the whole. It's not that much money. And then the beautiful thing about the Kogi is that every work that we do, they're very participatory in it. So like all the villages, the kids, the mothers, everyone was helping build these like facilities, and we created a breeding program. And now the children are eating guinea pig, which tastes like chicken.
Wow.
And is actually a very good, healthy, sustainable protein, which could actually be good for beyond.
That's wild. You know, I'd never heard of that until we were recently in Peru, up in the Andes, and they had that at one of the restaurants.
Yeah.
Like, that's interesting. I never thought of it, you know?
Yeah.
But it's one of those things whatever you're used to seems normal. So I was kind of like, oh, that's gross. Like, why?
Yeah.
I mean, look at the weird shit we eat. Just because someone told us at some point when we were a kid, that's the norm in our culture, and you just go along with it without thinking about it, you know?
Yeah. It's funny because the Kogi Mamu said that the animals that we eat have the mind of prison. And so it creates prison within us. So like the cows that we eat on the farms, when we eat meat that's been from a farm where the cow is basically in prison. I used to be vegan for many years, and then I was in a TP with some Lakota elders that I hosted, and the medicine said to me, you should eat bison every once in a while. Didn't say it exactly like, you know what I mean? It was just and I was kind of like, I should eat meat. And I couldn't even like cook. I didn't even want to clean a pan that had meat in it because I didn't want to eat animals. And so I did. And it really helped me a lot. So I eat a little bit of wild game, mostly elk, venison. I like the Maui venison, which is like wild caught. And then, and bison. And the energy of that meat is so different than cow or chicken.
That's interesting, you know, on the mamos and that cage thing, because there's a bison farm out here that I've been to a couple of times, and you can't cage bison. You know what I'm saying? Like, they are powerful and unruly, and they are definitely not domesticated. You know, the farmers have to they'll coax them into like the next pasture because they're doing a regenerative kind of rotating thing. They'll coax them with food, but you're not getting out there and like whipping them to go into the next, gate or whatever. It's not happening, That's so interesting.
Yeah, you can't get like a border collie to like wrangle them.
Yeah,
they're
bison are badass. They're so cool. I love that animal.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
There's an interesting story that I heard that when a storm comes, the cows will go away from the storm. So they end up like running from the storm, and they end up running for a long time until they get tired, and then they have the storm come. But when a storm comes, the bison walk into the storm so that it passes through them faster.
Great.
And that's why they're so
great life lesson.
Hardy.
We could all be better served if we learned to do that. All right, I feel like we've been going for 5 or 6 hours. Thank you for your your tenacity with me here. I do want to ask you one more thing though, and that I would just be remiss if I didn't cover this. Tell me about this project you have going in Portugal, because I think you sent me the PDF or a link to it, and it took me a while to get around to it, and I finally got in there. I was like, Allison, get in here! What the hell? This looks so freaking awesome. Hot springs on an island, the architecture, there's no freaking squares, boxes. I was talking to Joseph about this earlier. I loathe the way we build. Like my dream is to live in a, geoship, the bioceramic domes. Like I am obsessed with those. Like I think the future of part of our awakening is us living in, biocompatible, non-toxic materials and shapes. And like what you have in the works there is freaking bananas. So give us the, the quick download on that.
So, yeah, I'm 100% in agreement with you, and I'll give you the short version. So we had several mold exposures and got very sick. And the reason we realized that houses have mold is because
they're made out of mold food.
They're made out of mold food.
Yeah.
And when I was with the Kogi the first time this wasn't the first time I met them in 2015, but this was in 2018. They said, humans live in boxes. They're buried in boxes. They stare at boxes, but the universe thinks in spirals. And that was what hit me like this. And I'm like, we are stuck in our thinking because we're in a structure that prohibits creativity.
Yeah.
And when we look at the structures in nature that create life, the womb, the cave, the ancient structures, and we look at biomimicry, the idea of, the womb or the cave, which is essentially what a dome is really truly the most remarkable thing. And, we brought in this fancy Beverly Hills architect Niccolo Bini, who built Robert Downey Jr.'s house in Malibu. And, really innovative, but, made of concrete and rebar. And, just in my studies of the idea of how do you create piezoelectric energy, which is basically a battery for you, like when you think about things like materials like orgonite that block EMFs and materials, that the Great Pyramid was made of. When the Great Pyramid is tested, it still creates piezoelectric energy thousands of years later, and it doesn't even have the casing stones which actually enhance it or the capstone. Right. It still is creating that energy, which is what feeds life. It's like, our chi is it's our leaking chi that creates entropy and why we die and why we age. And so I looked at other types of newer materials, found the bioceramic concrete, and found out that you can actually achieve the same effect without because the bioceramic concrete is really expensive and it sets really fast. That's why the one that you're talking about, geoships, had to do them in panels and quick pour them.
Right.
But you can get a more profound effect if it's continuous and, it's got a continuous surface because of the way the electricity is conducted. But you can actually use the concrete underneath and you just do a thin shell of the bioceramic. And then to solve the issue around the steel, I found that a new type of rebar made from basalt. So what it does is it imitates the old temples, like if you look at the Nubian temples in Egypt that have kind of the dome roofs or the old buildings, it kind of imitates that without, and that was the best we could do with the cost of construction nowadays is so insane. And when you're trying to do something outside of the box, literally it's way more expensive. So and it's a holistic center of healing for being in relationship with the land. It's really about balance with nature. Obviously, all the best biohacking and wellness with, cold plunge, sauna, Himalayan salt room. Our wellness focus is really somatic therapy focus. So it's not going to a spa and getting a facial, but really about healing the body through, deep therapeutic work. And retreats and gatherings of amazing people, like maybe yourself one day.
Oh my God. When I saw the deck, I was like, cool, where can I move in? Do you guys need a maintenance man? Give me a shed in the back. I mean, it's just tell us about the land too, the hot springs. I mean, it's just it's nuts. And it's an island in Portugal, right? Portuguese island. Am I getting that right?
Yeah. So it's essentially, I believe, the mountains of Atlantis that sunk in the middle
of the Atlantic Ocean, 2.5 hours from Lisbon, 4.5 hours from Boston or New York. So
flight?
Yeah.
Holy shit. So it's way out there.
But it's close in comparison to Europe.
But I guess for some reason I was, forgive me, I'm not that great at geography and not that familiar with Europe in general, but I was thinking like, oh, it's just a couple miles off the shore of somewhere in Portugal.
Yeah.
But it's a ways out there though. I mean,
it's out there.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So is it kind of like, the Atlantic equivalent of Hawaii in the Pacific relative to, say, Japan or something? Is it in that ballpark in terms of how it's situated?
Yeah, essentially. It's kind of like in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, essentially. Yeah, very isolated. So it literally has been untouched and unheard of until, 2015, the Portugal and the EU was like, wow, this is one of the places that is most underdeveloped in all of Europe. And they started to focus on promoting it for tourism. And in 2019, I got this message in a meditation, and it was like, it's time to build your retreat center. And I asked where, and it said the Azores, and I looked it up on a map. And I was like, you want me to build a retreat center in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean? Very confused.
So it's called the Azores.
Azores.
Okay.
Azores. It can be pronounced different. People pronounce it differently depending on where you're from.
You guys managed to buy some land there?
We bought about 32 acres. And the crazy story is that I learned there was hot springs in the Azores. And I talked to this guy and I said, I'd really love to find some land to develop with hot springs. And he was like, all the land's developed with hot springs. It's already been commercialized. Good luck, kind of. Calls me back 3 weeks later. And he's like, I found your land.
Oh my God.
In Furnace, which is the area that is like the most, there's like 37 different kinds of thermal water and drinking water, and the best sparkling water that comes out of the ground that's won awards in Japan.
Oh my God.
I mean, it's like the water mecca. And all healing, like there's different spouts. And in Portuguese, it's like you drink this one if you had too much to drink at the bar. And you drink this one if you're a woman and you're iron deficient, because you're on your menstrual cycle. And there's, every single one has like some kind of healing effect. And the waters are just so incredibly, profoundly healing. Like I believe, I told Joseph, I was like, we don't need any biohacking here. We can just heal with the water.
Oh, 100%. Hot springs to me are like the greatest gift of nature. It's like just unreal. The best ever.
I agree with you 100%.
And good quality spring water to drink too. I mean, it's,
This is like the most, like the water that comes from our land is really rich in silica. And it has a little bit of lithium in it. It's got it's a tiny bit high in arsenic, so it might not be something you want to. I mean, it's fine to have a little bit here and there, but obviously it wouldn't meet like California standards of because they're very strict. But when you drink it, it goes into the cells so quickly. It's almost like you don't feel like you've even swallowed it. It's like almost like magical.
It's alive.
It's so alive.
I mean, water like that is alive. It's just, there's no other way to say it. Primary water, have you looked into primary water?
I've heard of it.
It's like, okay, so you have the supposed, which I don't know that I'm fully convinced on this, but the idea is you have the hydrological, cycle, right? Where evaporation goes up into clouds, creates snow, rain. It comes down on the surface of the earth. Some of that ends up seeping into the ground and going into aquifers, right? So you have like a water table or kind of underground lakes.
Yeah.
And the predominant understanding or belief, kind of like that oil is a limited resource, which many of us believe it's not. is that eventually those aquifers are going to dry up, so there's limited water. The idea that like there's a finite amount of water on the planet that keeps getting recycled. However, some wise people have discovered this substance called primary water, which is a water from deeper springs that have there's no evidence that they've ever been on the surface of the earth before and have never been part of the hydrological cycle. And so the idea is, which seems very plausible, is that in the interior of the planet, it's actually creating water out of thin air. Basically. And this is primary water. It's like literally the lifeblood of the planet that's in a never-ending supply that then magically levitates to the surface on its own and doesn't need to be drilled or, forced out. It's like it's ripe and it's coming to the surface like mother's milk, and that's primary water. And that water is like low in deuterium and is, it's just crystalline, beautiful, structured water. It's just incredible. I just think that I've loved water. So it's so fascinating to me. The idea of hot springs and just good quality spring water is just epic.
It's like, I believe, and I'm sure you've sat in some really beautiful water prayers in your history of just all the ceremonial work and all of the people that you've met and elders. And when you hear the stories of, the water carriers, and I have waters that are very sacred and that many elders have carried and that, are being held for the future of water for the planet. And when the elders come in and they pray over that water and you take that water, it's like drinking ayahuasca. It's, or any plant medicine. It has a psychoactive quality to it. And I really believe that water has an intelligence and has the capacity to heal anything that you ask it to heal with intention. And I think that our water is dirty, and I don't need to go into water because I know you've done massive podcasts on it.
I've probably done like 20, no more, because I've done like a few 2 or 3 hour episodes just on water,
Yeah. And I really believe that, we're all in a state of dehydration and, I think some of that's metaphysical. Some of it has to do with the toxicity of the water that we have access to. I mean, I've been drinking pure spring water delivered to my house in glass for well over a decade. And I really believe that it's one of our most important resources that we have and what we need to preserve. And that's why it makes me really upset when I hear, a lot of the different fracking and drilling for oil. And that's where these primary sources of water can get, destroyed.
Yeah. Tell me about, are you getting a live water? Is that the water you get? Yeah. That's my buddy, Chris.
I love Chris.
I have a funny story. We go way back. We used to go get water together and stuff. I remember when he started, he was like, he first like put him in the back of his car. Then he bought a little trailer, and then he would go up into Big Bear. And then eventually the fucking Ranger Rick, the Forest Service or whatever, like put up these blockades, these big boulders, so he couldn't get it. So it's crazy. I'm so glad he prevailed. Before we close, what's the timeline on your retreat center? What's it called? Is there a website? Like what's up with that? And also, are you guys, in addition to kind of the physical healing and wellness element, are you going to be doing like ceremony there and that kind of work as well?
So right now, I mean, we're on Portuguese time, which is like a whole nother time. It's not even Spain time.
I can imagine.
One of my friends who has land in Puerto Rico and Spain and building in both countries and has land in Portugal said, Portugal is the hardest country to build anything of any other country. The Azores is even more complex.
Yeah.
Took us 5 years just to get the blessing, to get all the permits in place to start building.
Okay.
We have everything in place. It's going to take about 2 years to build. So our target is like 2027, 2028, depending on if they actually, because you have to ship all the materials in
right.
to get it there. And then we right now the legal jurisdiction in Portugal is decrim. Decrim is based on a certain amount of dosage. There are people practicing there even that have public-facing websites. However, if you're going to invest all that money and really build something amazing, you can't run that risk, of doing medicine. But I believe that things will open up. And as soon as they are open, we will offer that. But I think the most important thing on this planet right now is the integration and the preparation. And I feel like it's the ultimate place that you can go to be in nature, to really integrate, to really connect. And I feel like it is going to be kind of like a life integration center. And I also believe, the website, sorry. We have not put up a website yet because we knew we were so far out in terms of like getting the building permits.
People be like, cool, where's the sign up button? You're like, hang on.
And we didn't want to kind of it like there's something to like what we're creating that it's kind of like when the baby's gestating, if you like reveal too much too soon, it kind of like loses the magic. And so we've been holding back on it. And I'm so happy we did. But we will probably put something up in the next.
Okay, cool. Well, keep me posted because I'm already obsessed with the whole idea. And would love to help you, create awareness and get attention to it. Because it's one thing you have like these sacred places on Earth that are awesome to enjoy, but by and large, they're exploited and abused in terms of the environment and just the
100%.
The magic of these places. And it seems like for some reason, the darker forces in the world tend to gravitate toward the most beautiful places and ruin them. So it's like, I think any little stronghold conscious stewards get is really important.
Yeah.
It's really important. I mean, just look at like what happened in Maui and just on and on. It's just like, it's crazy.
And even Tulum was destroyed by tourism. It got so polluted.
I've never been there. I'm probably the only guy that lives in Austin
that hasn't been to Tulum.
Hasn't been to Tulum or Burning Man. Yeah. I think by the time I started learning about Tulum, I was like, I don't know, it looks like too much of a party scene for me. I'm kind of an old fuddy-duddy in that regard.
Oh,
I'd like fewer humans, but very select, choice in them.
That's how I feel too. I mean, this is a small center. It's about 14 rooms, and the name is Hugh, which came to me in the meditation. And I was like, Hugh, and I look it up, and it's the tongue of Thoth, and it means the sound that is made when wisdom enters the initiate.
Wow, dope.
So yeah, I didn't pick any of it. I didn't pick the location or to do it. But I will say it's not easy. And I had a lot of elders that supported me. Malidoma Patrice Somé, who's a Degara elder who's passed. He did a lot of divination work and a lot of prayer throughout the process. Rotendo Nagara, who was past the altar of Credo Mutwa. From
cool.
South Africa. She's a dear friend.
I learned about that guy from David Icke years ago.
He was something else, probably one of the most, respected indigenous elders of Africa.
Wow. I didn't know that. I'm only familiar with him just because of the work that he did with David Icke. And David Icke was such a fan of his. And, he kind of verified some of David Icke's really far out theories,
Yeah.
That's cool.
He was just like, it's just so deep. I mean, he passed away, I think in his 90s, but he was so deep and truthful. He wrote several books in the wisdom, but at the same time, he would like talk about crazy stuff, like being initiated into the like reptilian lineage.
That's the stuff that David Icke would talk to him about. Yeah, I think when Icke found him, he was like, finally someone that is on board with this, this kind of idea of shape-shifting and reptilian race and stuff like that. Yeah. So Ike really banked on that of having, a credible elder wisdom keeper that was like, you verify the stuff you're talking about,
Yeah, he's really incredible. And then obviously, I had a lot of support and prayers, and I don't think I would have Joseph and I wouldn't have made it through even just that 5-year process if we didn't have all of that kind of, blessing and
I can only
support.
imagine. I mean, just renovating a freaking house has almost killed me, It's like you're trying to do something in an island in the middle of Atlantic and something of that grand of a scope and a vision, like a high vision like that. It's not like you're like, oh, we want to build a little house. It's like you're doing a real, a lot of innovation too. Innovation with a remote location and a lot of intentionality. I mean, that's big. So kudos to you. And I'm happy to support. Well, man, thank you so much, Tricia, for your energy and stick-to-itiveness here I'm just having so much fun. I just keep going. There's like more I want to learn. So thank you for hanging in there. And you're just awesome. You're so, I don't know, you have so much wisdom and experience, and you're just so cool. I knew I was going to be really excited to sit down with you based on your book and my intuitive feeling of like who's going to be awesome. And you have come through in spades. Hi, sweetie. Cookie and Ellison are down there going, hello.
Yay!
It's the next day already, Luke. I got one last question for you. I swear this will be the last one. And that is, and you probably already mentioned them, but maybe you'll surprise me. Who have been 3 teachers or teachings in general that have influenced your life and contributed to who you are today?
Joseph, my sacred mirror. He's my greatest teacher. He keeps me in check. He's like radically honest with me. My mother, Annette, and she's, half Mexican, half European, but really has an indigenous heart and loves God and is really humble and just has taught me so much in my life. And to this day, just really holding balance and equanimity. And I would say my grandma Hazel, who passed away, who is also, she's from, on my dad's side, but she's from Canada. And she just had the best green thumb, took care of so many animals, like a real farmer, just like strong woman, had a lot of children, went through a lot of trauma and turmoil, had children that died. And yeah, just like I just really feel like those women were, my mom and my grandmother were like, matriarchal wisdom keepers. And I feel like their love and their connection really were an incredible example. And obviously I have millions of other teachers. I feel everything is a teacher, but since I didn't mention them, I mentioned so many other people I wanted to.
Well, I noticed in the back of your book, you really, used many extra pages to give props to many of your teachers and wisdom keepers that have helped guided you, which I thought was cool. You don't really, I don't know. I haven't read every book on indigenous wisdom, plant medicine, psychedelics, etc., but I've never seen a book like have that much emphasis on that. So I think that's really nice. And also it gives people like some breadcrumbs of more to explore, right? Someone might hear this and be like, what's up with those mamos, and find a way to support them or share their wisdom and life ways and so on. So,
yeah, with the book, I would have loved to have put them in the front. And sometimes there's like publishing things where it's like, is this book about your experience or is it about the elders? And we didn't want to confuse people, but my heart is around supporting the elders. I believe they need to be the ones in the government running things. They need to have a seat at the table of a lot of the things that are happening, including the psychedelic movement. And if there's anything I can do to help make that happen, that's my highest joy.
Epic. Well, thank you for joining me. And I want to remind everyone, go to lukestorey.com/Tricia, find the link to her book, Seeding Consciousness, and go out and buy that damn thing, folks. Support the mission, support the movement. Thank you so much.
You are amazing. You can go. I was like impressed. You're just like full on.
Hey, man, you never know when it's going to happen again. That's the thing.
It's true.
We could have just went, okay, let's keep it to an hour and then we'll do another one. Who knows? We might, I mean, hopefully we see each other again, but you never know.
Will.
So I got to get it all in this time. So thank you for doing it.
Yeah. I mean, it was such an honor. Thank you for having me. Deep bow to your work. Like, you're the real deal. Thank you for being like the realest Austin, maybe the realest of all podcasters.
Thank you.
Like, really. And especially like the way that you're holding the masculine and just that is so important right now on the planet.
Thank you,
So
Tricia.
key. And your vulnerability is incredible because you're not trying to be perfect for anybody.
I tried it. It's impossible.
You can't do it.
You can aim for it, you know?
Yeah.
That's as good as you can do, I think. As long as you're aiming for it and knowing you're never going to get there, it makes life interesting.
Yeah.
But thank you for your kind words. I appreciate it.
I wish we had more time together. I mean, we had a lot of time together, but like just more like I love Allison.
Oh, me too.
She's
We'll make more time.
Let's do it.